On City Council meeting. The meeting is called to order, and I'd like to ask the city clerk to please call the roll.
All council members are present.
Would you all stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance and then remain standing for a brief moment of silence? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Before we get started, I want to warn you that my colleague, Gary Kendrick here, may be standing and watching us from above for a while because he's had a problem with his back, and that's what he needs to do, but he's a dedicated public servant, and I keep telling him to take the day off, but he won't do it, so he's going to stand. All right, the city clerk posted orders of adjournment of the April 9th, 2024 meeting and the agenda of the April 23rd, 2024 meeting in accordance with state law, city council, and housing authority policy. I'm going to put off proclamations for a little bit. We have some people that are here and need to quickly leave. I'm also going to put off consent items, but we are going to go to public comment. At this time, any person may address a matter within the jurisdiction of the City Council, Housing Authority, successor agency to the Cajon Redevelopment Agency that is not on the agenda. Comments relating to items on today's agenda are to be taken at the time that the item is heard. State law prohibits discussion or action on items not on the agenda. However, City Council and Housing Authority members may briefly respond to statements or questions, and an item may be placed on a future agenda. Angela, do we have some speaker cards for public comment?
Yes, sir, we do. We have three. The first one is Stephen Martin.
Lewis Martin, welcome.
Thanks for having me. We live on Taft Avenue. We were here.
Can you pull up your microphone a little bit so we can hear you?
We live on Taft Avenue. We were here a couple weeks prior for discussing the high speed in our neighborhood and people doing donuts and blowing through the stop signs. Since our last time we spoke, actually I didn't speak last time, but last time we were here, I had another car end up in my front yard again. So we did a petition. We had well over 100 signatures for speed bumps or slowing measures in our neighborhood from all of our neighbors. A picture's worth 1,000 words, so I have a map here. It's just the Google images, nothing special. Showing why we have some issues and where they're located. So this is obviously Taft Avenue. I wish it was bigger. I apologize. Coming through Washington, if they see that there's a red light for Avocado, they cut through and sometimes go down Renette or over to Chase, and it's to avoid several stoplight intersections. And when they do that, there's no stop signs, no speed bumps, and they can just blow through at 40 plus. The guy that we had on video was going over 80, the one we sent you guys last time. Lots of crashes. I'm here with some neighbors. It's one of the things that we recommend is maybe putting speed humps or speed bumps. I looked at the budget on those things. They're run anywhere from $1,000 to $2,500 per speed bump. I imagine the more you purchase, the cheaper they are individually. Looks like we only need 6 speed bumps. Would probably slow most the traffic down and dramatically. The reason Taft is, I believe, also affected by speed is if you were to continue past Washington, the speed narrows dramatically by 10 feet. So we have a very wide street here with wide setbacks, wide sidewalks, wide parkways. So visibility is like an airstrip. You can go fast comfortably. I think the speed bumps are probably the only option since I live here on the corner and they run this stop sign regularly. I got a lot of signatures in one day. In one afternoon, I got over 50 signatures from neighbors. It was a group part effort, so I wasn't the only one collecting signatures. A lot of them were actually on Denise as well. And talking with the neighbors there, when they cross Taft Avenue, they almost get hit all the time. And turns out the person that was going onto my front driveway was a neighbor on Denise. The person going down Taft Avenue was going so fast, they swerved to avoid getting hit as they were traveling on the street, and ended up in my driveway or my grass where my kids play. So we definitely have to do something about this. The cost of the speed bumps is nothing compared to a cost of a lawsuit on something like this, because you guys are aware of this. This is
more importantly, the cost of a life.
yes.
Let me see if there's any questions before you, and then I'm going to ask my city manager where we're at with this. Questions? Graham, have we made any progress in this process?
I know we installed the signage, the speed monitoring sign.
Yes.
And so I think the next step was, let's see how that goes. And if that makes any difference, we'll go out and do some measuring. We'll look at the petition, and we can look at what the next steps would be.
I want you to keep in touch with us.
Okay.
I think everybody here very much cares about this issue, and we have to go through the process. I did want to tell you that the cost of the speed humps, I don't think that's an issue.
Okay.
Speed bumps are controversial because they do damage to cars, and there's a lot of problems with speed humps. But we're not ruling that out, and I'm going to have our city manager find out what the next step is, and then we'll get back to you. And if you'd like to leave your number for me, I can keep in touch with you and give you my cell phone number.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay. Thanks. Let's keep in touch. And,
Any
yes,
questions?
two more. Yes, Steve.
Councilman Ortiz, we were just talking about this at the beginning of the meeting, because he's got speeding on Washington, I've got speeding on Greenfield. It's all over the city. Maybe there is some type of engineering that can be done that doesn't. I guess I'm thinking some places I've seen kind of like a little island in the middle of the street that has a tree in it, and it does take away 2 lanes down to 1 lane, but it does force a driver to make a curve around that tree in the middle of the street, and that by nature engineers them to a slower speed. Mm-hmm. If Taft is wide enough, that might be something to look at. Mm-hmm. And really on some of these streets like Washington and Greenfield, or more stop signs between, but the engineering, I think, is where if we change it or direction, then maybe we slow them down. Food for thought.
I mean, clearly, a street diet or narrowing the street, a long-term engineering solution is far more effective than enforcement and education. So I think you're exactly right.
Yeah, I just want to express the sense of urgency I have in this area for these residents. I don't want cars ending up in my residents' front yard and their front homes. It's 25 mile per hour neighborhood. I don't want kids getting hit. And so whatever we can do to hit the fast forward button with this. And when Councilmember Goebel and I were speaking, it does seem like the pulse on the neighborhoods are that there's more speeding in smaller neighborhoods than there has been in the past 5 years. And so if there are trends, maybe we can look into that. But I agree. We can do a blitz with police officers to ticket, and we can do your speed is signs that track the radar with the radar gun. But engineering is really the only solution. And I mean, when 100 residents sign a petition saying it's a problem, I think we need to respond. So thank you.
Okay. Anybody else? Michelle? Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I think this is a problem. I live on Mollison, and we have a quarter mile stretch that they race down to get from Bradley to Greenfield. I don't think we already have stop signs. We already have speed signs. They're not minding those. I don't think that it's going to matter to them how many stop signs we put up.
It won't.
They're already running them.
Yes, exactly. I hear it every day.
Because I know at Taft and Pauline, I understand that they're running those quite frequently. So
that's why we're recommending the speed bumps, because it forces the vehicles to slow down. If they're going to do damage over a speed bump, they're going way too fast.
No, I agree, and I agree with my colleagues that maybe it's the engineering. We have to figure something out because they're not paying attention as it is.
Is there a process, Graham, that we could come up with for a neighborhood to potentially initiate speed bumps in their neighborhood? Do we have a process?
One last thing real quick. Sorry, I don't mean to interrupt, but part of the reason we're having this problem is Lincoln was the cut through prior. Then speed bumps were added there, and now they're going down a street over. So Lincoln got speed bumps, and we forced everybody down our street.
Okay.
Which is still a shortcut, right? As far as speeding through residential neighborhoods, it's one thing if you live in the neighborhood, but I follow a lot of people on the e-bike, and they're just passing through, especially during peak hours and rush hour.
Perfect. Okay.
It's
That's
incredible.
That's helpful info.
Sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Go ahead.
We don't have a formal, there is a process, but we don't have a formal process or policy. Like Encinitas, for example, has a policy where if a neighborhood installs them, you have to have a certain percentage of the residents that sign the petition. There's a fee associated with it. Then there's a petition to uninstall them, because a lot of times we find out that speed humps actually create other problems as well, so unintended consequences. And so they had to analyze both of those sides. We're going to be careful. We're moving into an agenda item at this point. But I know that the chief is bringing forward an annual report of some efforts they had in speed enforcement last year, and that may be a good opportunity to include in the staff report maybe some policy options for the council to explore.
My concern with speed bumps is we have delivery trucks going down the road every day. We have fire trucks going down the road every day. We have police cars going down the road every day. And we can't begin to go down the road, no pun intended, of becoming a speed bump city. I think engineering is probably the better answer, and that's probably a good way to start.
I think most cities have found that to be the answer as well.
Thank you very much for coming. Angela?
Next speaker is Barbie Bates.
Hey, Barbie. Welcome.
So I'm the second half of the sign over here. I have the signed petition from all of our neighbors. I started at 700 block. There was and then we went up to the 800 block, and we're all the way to the thousands, and even into Denise on getting something done with our street. And like Steve told you, was, between this time, from the last time, the first time that I came to you, our city councilman, Phil Ortiz, thank you very much, came by out of his own pocket and gave us, can I say that? Too late. Children, slow down, caution signs, children's in the rain with his kids, so to help us with our neighborhood. And since then, we've already had an accident almost happen in Steve's yard again. So we got to do something. When you get to my street, I'm a dip. I have a dip. The street has a dip. And that is where they get airborne. Maybe in your engineering department, you can get rid of that dip, because that seems to just speed them up. It's like let's see what we can get, how high can our car get off the ground. So maybe there's a place that you could start, but we definitely need something before somebody gets killed. And that's what's next on our agenda, is somebody's going to get killed. Our kids should be able to go out in the neighborhood and play. And from what I understand, the speed thing that you guys put up from the police department, thank you very much for doing so. It came out 2 days afterwards, but they're not even capturing the data on the speed. That's just there to make people think that they're being monitored, and they're not really. So you don't even have the data on what exactly has been going on in our street since they brought in the machine. So I'd like to see something. So who do I turn our petition in?
You can turn it to Angela.
Okay.
Thank you. Thanks for letting us know, Barbie. Keep us
Thank you for the time to talk.
keep us informed. All right.
Sir, the last speaker is Brenda Hammond.
Hi, Brenda.
Hi, Mayor. Hi, Mr. Mitchell. I'm a mess because I didn't get a chance to write out what I wanted to say, because I was at the cemetery clearing out my grandma's headstone because it was so flooded we couldn't even find it. But I found it and I cleaned it out. It wasn't in El Cajon, don't worry. So the reason why I went there was because 43 years ago today, we buried our first daughter. And while we were there, standing there, Joe Drew walked up. And I said, "What are you doing here? You're supposed to be running your dealership." And he said, "I'm here for you." And he held me while I cried. His employee, my husband at the time, only worked there for 3 years, and he still took the time out to come and be with us. So my thing is, I know it sounds personal, but I'm wondering what happened to the next generation. I'm seeing selfish people that don't even care about, their employees or their friends, their neighbors. I'm seeing people that come up here and talk for their own reasons. And so back to the fun. So I have this big flyer for the concerts, and I can't wait till they start. And I'd have my dash lined with Lemon Grove, La Mesa, and El Cajon concert series, so we can dance in all of the cities. I love how it's on a separate night for each city. Thank you.
Thank you, Brenda. All right, we're going to skip over to administrative reports, and we have 4 administrative reports on today's agenda. Item 10 is a report on critical services tax measure, and I'm going to ask our staff to tell us about this.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council. If we can get my slide up, that'd be helpful. The intent of this report is to give a pretty high-level overview of some of the information that we've began to gather and some recommendations of how to continue to gather information about whether or not the City of El Cajon should place a replacement or a continuation of the Prop J sales tax measure. So really quickly, as you recall, earlier this year or later last year, we put out a request for proposal to kind of understand the community sentiments towards an extension of a sales tax measure. Through that RFP process, Competitive Edge and also Southwest Strategies was chosen to do the polling and also help the city with public information so that our residents have a full understanding of the impacts of this sales tax measure, as well as to help us understand what those impacts will be to our residents and also the sentiment that our community has. Before I go any further, I'm going to invite John Needstead, who is from Competitive Edge, to give just a high-level overview of some of the observations that came about as a result of the polling that occurred earlier this year.
Thank you. I'm happy to be here. It's great to see you all. Yes, Competitive Edge was hired to conduct a poll of the voters in El Cajon. Did a 910-person survey. Maybe some of you in the audience took the survey. Thank you for taking it, by the way. And that produces a sampling error, marginal sampling error of plus or minus 3.2%. I won't get into the details about that, but this is a very extensive, well-conducted survey. We contacted folks by phone, both landline and cell. We contacted and invited them to do the survey by email, and we contacted them and invited them to do the survey by text. We did this March 11th through the 20th. Every survey is a snapshot in time, so we should always keep that in mind. The turnout model that we use is 60%. So that means that we believe that for this ballot measure, about 60% of the voters will actually participate. It could be higher, it could be lower. Nobody knows what the actual turnout will be like. The survey data was appropriately weighted based upon multiple factors to ensure that it mirrors that 60% turnout model. So the good news, I think everybody would agree as far as the folks who are proponents of the measure, is that the measure is widely supported. And we found that 30% definitely support the measure as we presented it to them. Another 31%, would probably do so. And combined, the no's would be at 27%. Okay, so that's when we read them the ballot measure that was produced in concert with the city manager. I'm going to go ahead and just give you some high-level things, and then if there's any questions, I'd be happy to take any of them and give you the best answers I can. So the main thing to keep in mind as to why we're getting the numbers that we're getting is because the El Cajon Critical Services Measure is considered to relate to public safety. And public safety, the fire department, the police department, is very well liked and very favorably, the impressions are very favorable of both those institutions, and the measure is seen as something that will support their efforts in maintaining safety in the city. There's more to it than that. We also asked folks why they support and why they oppose. Certainly the idea of a critical services measure is well supported. People like that. The supporters really focus on that type of a measure, that type of terminology. Yes, there are a few people that oppose the measure. Typically, these are what we would think of as anti-tax, folks with anti-tax sentiment, generally not necessarily specific to the city of El Cajon. Now, we also tested measure provisions, so these are things that are embedded in the measure or could be embedded in the measure. We also tested messages on both sides, so supporters and opponents, and we also tested messengers, so people that would endorse or people that would oppose the measure. In all that work, we found that the ballot measure actually, the responses, the opinions of the ballot measure actually improved in what we would call an informed test. And those numbers were actually slightly better than what we found in the initial test. So that replicates as near as we can what a campaign might look like in a competitive environment where the opponents get their fair share of time to talk and communicate with the voters. And at the end, we find that there's enough support for this, in my view, to proceed with next steps, which, as the city manager outlined, would be a public outreach campaign. Be happy to take any questions that you have.
Thank you, John. Questions for Mr. Nisa?
So, bottom line, we just want to extend our current tax rate. And that was well received.
Yes.
Okay. I just want the public to understand that it's not an increase, it is just status quo.
Yes, Councilmember, that's a very important point. Thank you for reinforcing it.
Thank you.
Anybody else? John, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Are there any speaker cards on the side?
Mayor, let me finish. Can I finish my portion of the presentation?
Oh, of course. Yeah.
So I think this the polling data helped us understand that there was a positive reception from the community, and so it's worth exploring further. A poll is just that. It's a snapshot in time of people's sentiment. And one of the things that we really lacked the last time we did a sales tax measure, as you recall, it was very last minute. It didn't give us a chance to really go out and understand the community and talk to them about what their needs are. And so we would actually recommend we do a couple exercises, and that's what I wanted to kind of finish the presentation about. One, I think it's important that we analyze maybe some of the solutions in the event or some of the ways to cut expenditures or to increase revenues in the event that Prop J doesn't happen. I think that's having that honest conversation with our community is something important. So staff has kind of looked at how to reduce $16 to $20 million out of our budget or to increase revenues. This is very preliminary, very early brainstorming. Very limited conversations at the staff level, no conversations at the city council level, no communication with the public about it. But just to give you a sense of how to cut $15 million out of the budget, if you wanted to do that today, it would be reducing 10 police officers, reducing our non-sworn police department by 10 individuals, eliminating 7 public works operators, cutting 25 other positions out of non-public safety departments, and eliminating two folks in the police department, one a sworn fire official and then a non-sworn. It would also mean browning out an engine whenever we had a need for overtime. So rather than filling overtime, we would just brown out an engine. Get rid of nice things that we love to have, like the city app. That only saves $40,000. But we are scraping the barrel, as you can see. Leasing out 2 of our recreation centers temporarily to charter schools or other organizations and generating some lease from that. Leasing our other properties that we have around the city. Looking at actually ground leasing one of our parks for permanent housing development. So we take a park off out of our system and turn it into housing and generate ongoing revenue from that. Increasing fees, and then at the end of the day, maybe even considering a cannabis ordinance. So these are kind of, again, really high-level brainstorm. These are a lot of things that would have to occur to get that simple replacement of a sales tax measure. So just give the council a flavor of some of the things that would have to occur. But a lot of that would be affecting staff. And at the end of the day, we are a service industry, and so that means a reduction in the levels of staff services that are provided to our residents. What I would recommend from moving forward at this point is that the city council give some direction on whether to have some listening sessions, and I would recommend those be in the form of town halls, interactive town halls, just like we did with the homeless town halls. That it was roll up your sleeves and people were engaged. It wasn't one-sided communication, but it was an opportunity to really dive into some issues and really hear from our residents. So I'd recommend that we do those over the summer, as well as some other educational campaign information sharing. And then we would follow up with another poll to see how our residents continue to feel about it. And if it still looks positive, at that point, staff would recommend to the city council that we put it on the November ballot. If it doesn't look favorable, that's when staff would start thinking about what are some cuts that we could begin to make now, gearing up, knowing that there's still 2 bites at the apple still, because there's 2 more elections that would occur after November 2024. But as you saw in that list, there's a lot of things that just can't happen overnight. There are things that we'd have to ramp up for. And so we'd probably start reducing staffing through some attrition rather than having new layoffs. So we could start gearing up for that in the event of the measure not being extended. So with that, staff's here to get any direction from the council on whether you like the direction that we're recommending in terms of the listening series, and also following up with another poll and any information that you think should be shared with the community. So with that, I'm here to take any feedback, and maybe now's a good time, Mr. Mayor, to hear from the public.
Yeah, speaker cards, please.
We have no speaker cards, sir.
Okay, it's back to council for questions for Graham. No questions? Okay, well, I think we're looking just for a motion then to accept the report. Actually, Graham, you're looking for a little feedback on the town halls.
Yeah, is that something the council would want to do?
I'm assuming everybody would be fine with that.
Yeah, I'm in favor of that. I think that's important.
Okay.
Yeah, I think we don't take these things lightly, and hearing from the public is something vital whenever we're discussing any kind of sales tax measures. So I think the education campaign as well, and a follow-up poll. Yeah, absolutely.
And Bill, you know that 70% of our budget goes to public safety, police, fire, paramedics. And I think people need to know that without the sales tax extension, that we would have to cut back on police, fire, and paramedics. And I sure wouldn't want to wait another 10 minutes for the ambulance to come to get me if I had a heart attack.
The education is important through town halls, because a typical sales tax measure is an addition, and you're adding a sales tax, and so you're doing that to get this more than what you have today. This is defense. We're not asking for any new things. We're saying we want to keep what we have, and the education is this is what we will lose if we don't continue the current situation.
Thank you. So I think if it's okay with the council, what I would recommend is we actually do a town hall in each of your districts. And so we'd have 4 different town halls at a minimum. And we may even do some specialized ones like we did with the homeless effort and outreach effort. So we'll get those, start working with you on your calendars and getting some things scheduled.
Thanks, Graham. Appreciate that. Okay. Let's just go ahead and take a vote on accepting the report. I move to accept the report. Please vote.
I'm sorry, I'm missing a vote, so I'm going to reset the vote, and it is ready for you again.
All right.
Motion carries by unanimous vote.
Thanks, Mr. Neesad. Thank you very much, and look forward to working with you in the future. Okay, we're going to jump around a little bit, and we're going to go to item 13, which is a lease agreement with the Chaldean Community Council to operate a social service operation and small business incubator program. And before I ask our city manager to tell us about this, I have to announce that because of state law about political campaign contributions, I have to recuse myself from this issue. I'm going to ask Deputy Mayor Phil Ortiz to take it from here, and I'll come back after the vote.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll let staff introduce this item.
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor and members of the City Council. Staff, as the City Council recalls, near the end of January, early February, the city closed escrow at 405 East Lexington Avenue. City purchased the building for about $2.5 million, and the existing tenant, which was the Chaldean Community Council, was there, and we've been working with them and developing a lease agreement for 2 specific leases, and that's what staff's here to present this afternoon. The building is a little over 7,000 square feet, and so there's a first and a second floor. So the thought would be that the one of the leases would be with Chaldean Community Council for the ground floor, a little bit on the second floor, comprising a little over 4,000 square feet, and that would really be for the social services that they provide, including the Chaldean radio program and other marketing efforts that they are endeavored within our community. The second lease agreement would be for the business incubator, which is about 3,000 square feet, also located on the second floor. In terms of the specifics of the agreement, they're attached for your review, but it would be a $1 per year lease. The tenant would be required to maintain a $25,000 security deposit in the event of other things or defaults or other issues that need to be resolved with the building. They would be responsible for any basic repairs and the general maintenance of the building. There would be an enforcement of the no smoking policy in the city and the state of California. They would be responsible for 60% of the utilities, cover and have insurance, and they'd also have any possessory interest tax liability. The city would also be responsible for ensuring that the structural and mechanical systems are in working order, and we would initiate some of the building repairs that we have gone through with them and I've preliminarily identified needing to occur to bring the building up to code. And the agreement also includes an early termination clause allowing the city to terminate the agreement with 6 months written notice. In terms of the business incubator, as you recall, last year the city released a request for proposal to interested parties that would operate a small business incubator. The Chaldean Community Council was the only entity that presented a proposal. It was reviewed by the City Council, and the City Council directed us to look for an opportunity to work with them. The one way that we can work with them is providing them about 3,000 square feet of space at no cost. And under this lease agreement, they would have some of the same requirements as the social services part, although there would be an activity reporting aspect. We would require that 75% of the businesses that that participate in the incubator program would have a El Cajon connection, and that there's some conflict of interest clauses as well. Since the lease agreement were put out for council review, we received a couple questions, and I'd like to recommend some additional modifications to the agreement. One has to do with just defining what utilities means, and I think that's important that we're all on the same page, because what a utility may be to me may not be what the assistant city manager may think it to be. So we would recommend it include water, sewer, trash, gas, and electricity. We also think that maybe there should be some more specifics when it comes to the activity reporting, where we would have the inclusion of contact information, so in the event we wanted to contact them to see if there was other opportunities to either assist those businesses or to understand their experience in the program. And then we would also think that there's some value in extending the conflict of interest, not only while they participate in the program, but within a year after them graduating, so that there's a distinction between board member participation and ownership. So those are three things that we would recommend changing to the existing agreements that you see before you this afternoon. So staff's here to answer any questions that you may have, but we have one resolution that would adopt both of the leases, one to provide the social services and then the other to provide the small business incubator services. So with that, staff's here to answer any questions or to take any additional direction.
Thank you, Graham. Council, any questions for the city manager on the details of the lease? Any comments? We'll save comments for later. Yeah, let's do, Angela, do we have any speaker cards?
We do, sir. We have two. The first one is from Kay Turpin.
Wonderful.
Then it's Cajon Maloney.
Hi, Cajon. Come on up.
Thank you for giving me an opportunity to be heard today. In my professional life, I work as a deputy district attorney here in the county of San Diego. But in my personal life, I work as a volunteer for the Chaldean Community Council, and I serve as the secretary on the board of directors. As Mr. Mitchell knows, we have been in extensive communications with the city over the lease agreement and getting the building. And in our initial talks with the city, we started out with trying to gain ownership of the building. And that was the hope, and that was the goal, but we later learned that that was not going to be an option, so that we were going to do a lease. And we had always discussed and hoped for a 5-year lease because we are a new nonprofit organization. We are central to the El Cajon community, and as you are well aware, the Chaldean community here in El Cajon is 50,000 strong, and those are primarily the people who need social services in this neighborhood, who don't speak the language and face certain challenges just assimilating. After we realized we weren't able to own the building, we started negotiating the contract for the lease, and it was always going to be a 5-year lease, and we tried very hard to get a longer term, but we understand that there was some resistance about that, and so we have actually signed a lease that stipulated that it was a 5-year term. We recently held a launch party, and I believe many of you were present, where we were able to sing your praises and talk to the community about what a wonderful opportunity it was to collaborate with the city and get this space for the next 5 years to be able to expand on the social services as well as establish the El Cajon Small Business Incubator. We also received a $500,000 grant from Mr. Supervisor Joel Anderson in hoping that we establish the Small Business Incubator, and that would be beneficial to the city by increasing revenues, creating businesses here in the city, gaining employment for folks who need jobs, hopefully not have to force the budget cuts of firing 10 police officers and other city employees. We recently learned after signing that contract, the lease agreement, that the city council, that I believe Mr. Mitchell is suggesting that there is a 6-month termination without cause. So what we've done is essentially created a 5-year lease and have turned it into a 6-month rolling lease. And that was the main point of contention that we were really fighting for. As you establish an organization, you really need time, and you're investing in people, and you're investing in the community, and the money that we are getting is being used to invest on our social services and expand on that. And to take the 5-year option and say now the city council has the opportunity to terminate after 6 months without any reason whatsoever is really undermining all of the negotiations that we had. Part of the goal of the small business incubators is to create businesses that are going to stay in El Cajon. That is our goal, is to improve El Cajon's economy and get people to bring money into the city and bring jobs. And we are doing that with the city's interest. I believe all council members would be in support of that idea, is to create more businesses and create more revenue. And to give the city council now the option to basically tell us we must leave the building with only 6 months' notice is really, it appears disingenuous. And so what we've always wanted is just a 5-year term. We would take a longer term if we could, but we understand that we were able to meet in the middle and agree to 5 years. And it was only a week after we disclosed to the media all of the wonderful things that the city's doing and how this is such a collaboration that we've learned that the city now hopes to be able to terminate after just a 6-month period of time.
Cajon, your time has expired, but you can keep going for a little bit longer. Just
Oh,
to
no,
wrap up,
thank you.
okay?
It's basically, I'm just trying to say that we hope that you do the right thing and honor the commitment that we all kind of agreed to at the beginning, and that we keep this a collaboration rather than an opportunity for separation. Thank you.
Thank you. Angela, do we have any other speakers?
Yes, sir. The second speaker is Kay Turpin.
Good afternoon, members of the council. Kay Turpin. I do business development and compliance for the community council. We do feel a little blindsided by this last-minute addition. Both Cajon and myself spent hours and hours negotiating the terms of the original lease with members of the council. These discussions had never taken part during the months that we were reviewing the terms and discussing this acquisition. But I'm here today to talk a little bit about the Chaldean Community Council and the Chaldean community at large. As you know, I'm a contracted consultant. I've really enjoyed working with the Chaldean Community Council over the past few months, and I've learned quite a bit about the community and what they offer to the city of El Cajon. There are over 250 businesses in the city of El Cajon. There are 6,000 students that are enrolled in the Cajon Valley School District. And between the 3 churches here who report to the diocese, there are 10,000 family members, 10,000 families that are members of the church that report to the diocese, that there's an additional 50,000 people living within the city. We estimate that approximately 25% of the population speaks Arabic. We have a Facebook account with over 80,000 followers. We have been working with your city police department for many years, posting public information, trying to be a good steward of resources for the populations that we serve. And even today, posted an attempt to locate to our 80,000 followers. We feel that up until this point, we've had a great working relationship with the city. There is a sense of betrayal among us for this last-minute addition. I hope that this is not going to be included in our lease. As Cajon said, it's counterproductive to have a 5-year lease and then have a 6-month notice to vacate. The reasons that we were given for the vacate was that if your tax initiative didn't pass or the economy got worse, you would need to reclaim this asset to balance your budget. We don't want to be in a position where any of your tax initiatives are going to affect our efforts to promote small business in this community or to help people in need. I want you to know that since I've been working for the Chaldean Council, I have visited their churches numerous times. I have made home visits to the senior populations who need meals. I have personally interviewed and screened individuals who need rental assistance, and the services that they provide to this community are invaluable. It would make no sense whatsoever if the economy got worse to shut down these social services. It would have a devastating effect on this community. And for this reason, I urge you not to consider adding this clause to the lease agreement. Thank you.
Thank you, Kay. Angela?
No other speaker cards, sir.
Wonderful. So it goes back to us, council. Does anyone want to make a comment? Steve?
Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor. I have some questions, and we can invite back up whoever wants to answer the questions. How how long has the CCC been in operation? I'm hearing, there's two things. I'm hearing CC operation, I'm hearing incubator. Incubator we know is a startup, but the CCC has been around operating for how long?
The Chaldean Community Council received their 501c3 license in 2017 under Chaldean Radio. They have done an official name change once they made the addition of their social services, which was during COVID.
Okay, so on the both leases, one lease for the CCC, one lease for the incubator, both of those are proposed to have the 6-month out term. Are you proposing that the council take out the early termination rights in both leases?
I'm urging you to do so, please.
Okay, and I have a question.
Sure.
One of the things we have to do as a council is balance everybody's interests. So in this case, the public is only charging $1 a year for rent. In fact, you hand a $5 bill over, you get 5 years worth of rent out of that. How do I balance, and maybe this is for the assistant city manager, this is probably Class C property, commercial? $1 a foot? Is that?
I mean, it's been a while since I've been in that world, but yes, I think that's probably accurate.
Okay, $1 a foot, and let's say the incubator is 3,000 square feet, so the public is giving you essentially free space. And by the way, the public includes, in my view, from the American Community Survey, which is a part of the census, 20% of people who are not Hispanic, 20% speak probably Middle Eastern language at home. So I'm saying 1 in 5 El Cajon people are from Middle East, Northern Africa, those kind of things. So I recognize when I talk about the public, that includes everybody, including the parties today. So $3,000 a month times 12 months is $36,000 a year free rent. For 5 years is $180,000. The public is gifting to Chaldean Community Services in exchange for the social services it provides to at least 20% of El Cajon. And $180,000 in rent to the incubator, which we hope does 75% people who are in El Cajon. So we have to balance getting value for that $180,000. And I think I'm okay with taking out the 6-month requirement on the social services side because it's an established, clearly popular service to 20% of our residents at least. On the incubator side, my question is, what if there isn't the demand, the applications for the incubator? Do we continue to provide a free space that has low usage?
My understanding, Councilman, is that the funding that you used to acquire the entire building, both social services and incubator space, was actually not city funded. It was ARPA money that was given to you by the federal government specifically for the purposes of economic development to the tune of $2.7 million. And so to the concern that you are accountable to the taxpayers in El Cajon, I would say if you don't spend that money, my understanding is that it would have to go back to the federal government. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
And indeed,
so what we're doing is collaboratively, we're making an investment in the city of El Cajon with federal COVID dollars that would otherwise be returned to the federal government. To your second question, I feel very comfortable with Graham's suggestion that we have milestones that we have to meet with the business incubator. That was never a point of discussion or contention in our lease agreement. We are very comfortable providing 75% of those new businesses within the city of El Cajon and all of the other reporting stipulations that were put in place. The social services aspect of it is different because as an outsider, I'm looking at what the Chaldean community has done for your beloved city, and they have contributed far more than they have taken over the past few years. And I'm in that facility 2 days a week, and I think that they're giving far more than they're asking in return.
Okay, my question was, and still is, what if the public doesn't show the demand for this kind of incubator service? Should we use that space for something else for the taxpayer's benefit?
I suppose at the end of the 5-year lease agreement, you'll have to make that decision. Today, we're more concerned with adding a 6-month notice to vacate. Everything else has been negotiated, discussed ad nauseum. We've been here. You've been behind closed doors, not once but twice. And then we had this last-minute addition to the lease, which really blindsided us.
So you're saying if the service isn't popular with the public, we have to endure 5 years?
I'm saying if you have concerns about that, you should probably put another provision in the lease, but a 6-month notice to vacate is not the right provision.
What's your suggestion for a provision?
Well, we would need a little more time to discuss that. I don't know that I could answer that on behalf of my client. Yes.
Sure. I'm looking for the answer to the question. What if the public just says, you know, the demand's not there?
Well, something to consider is that I don't think you're going to be able to make that decision in a 6-month period of time. This type of organization requires, I would say, at least a year to establish, you know, procedures, protocols. This is the very start of what we're doing. So there's going to be some time to build the organization, get our name out there, get people aware of what we're doing. It's going to take more time than that to start getting applications, start doing recruitment. I mean, there's so many things that we could do to make sure that we are getting an interest by the public. If we notice that we're not seeing an interest of people just walking in the door, we can invest in recruitment. We can invest in just different ways of trying to gain interest. And if that doesn't work, perhaps we can work on helping people who have businesses expand their business. But our goal is to increase business and increase revenue for the city of El Cajon. I mean, and that's kind of, I think, a 5-year period of time. You can't really judge whether or not this is going to be really successful without giving it a fair opportunity. And I think 6 months is just not enough.
I agree with you. I think 6 months, 1 year, 1 year, 6 months. It's perhaps going to take 2 years to know, does this thing have any legs on it? But what if we say after 2 years, it's just not happening with the public? Do we have to wait longer than 2 years? Do we have to wait the full 5 years?
I would say yes, but if the council wants to see something different, perhaps we can talk about expanding social services and expanding what the Chaldean Community Council is doing in terms of using the top floor of that building, or expanding the Chaldean radio. I mean, we are so involved in the community that there are many options to expand on services that help the community. And something else you mentioned earlier was that the implication was that we're only helping Middle Eastern population. We are not only helping the Middle Eastern population. We are open to anybody and everybody that needs help with social services. And so that would be anyone from anywhere. We have never and we would never turn anybody away. It is all of El Cajon. And while we're called the Chaldean Community Council, it's because that was the majority of the people that we were helping.
I'm going to thank you. I'm just trying to get my questions answered. I've heard the value of the organization. I've heard the great things that you do. There's no dispute about that. I'm trying to get down to the public is giving the CCC free rent, and what does the public get in return? That's where I'm kind of limiting my questions here.
Okay.
Not the value of what's being given, or how. I'm just trying to figure out how long.
Well, I believe the question, it would be 5 years. That would be my answer.
Okay, sounds good.
Thank
now,
you.
I happen to agree with the issue about not having the early lease on the CCC side. I'm a little more interested on the incubator side, because let's say I am a business and I make a capital investment in tenant improvements, in new equipment. That's a risk if I know I could get kicked out of there in 6 months. I may not buy that $30,000 copier if I know I may have to go somewhere else in 6 months. Here's my next question. Where would you go if you didn't have this facility available for either operation?
Thank you. So just to give you like a background on the incubators, and currently...
I'm sorry, Dr. Barca, but I'm just not want to narrow the questions here. Where would you go if you didn't?
Okay. But before, I want to answer your first question. Like, you think, or there is a possibility that nobody's going to join or going to be no interest in the incubator?
I'm saying I don't know what the response is going to be.
I'm going to answer that part.
Okay.
So currently there are like one major incubator in San Diego, which is called Evonexis. Mm-hmm. They valued at $10 billion. And we're going to be the second one, and this is going to kind of we're going to cover East County, basically, and we said we're going to focus on El Cajon. 75% of our candidate will be from El Cajon, but we'll have 25% from other surrounding cities that we are going to serve. So one scenario, if we don't get enough people from El Cajon, we're going to get from around us, because the Evo Nexus is packed.
Well, let me pause there, because you say if you don't get enough people from El Cajon, you'll go outside.
We're going to talk to the city council, because one condition we're going to put, if you graduate from El Cajon, small business incubator, you have to stay and do business in El Cajon. Even if you come from outside El Cajon, your business, your company has to stay in El Cajon and pay taxes in El Cajon and hire people from El Cajon. So we can add condition to our incubator. Even people from outside El Cajon, they can join us. They have to commit to El Cajon business and economy development.
I'll have to leave that to the city manager, because
we can talk about it.
Because
that's the scenario.
The requirement is going to have to be 75% of the businesses come from El Cajon.
Our goal is to empower.
Dr. Barca,
Yeah.
please let me
Go ahead.
have some time, and then I'll give you time to answer as well. The requirement for 75% is because the people of El Cajon are funding this through free rent.
Sure.
And free property tax. If it was a for-profit organization in there, they would have to pay property tax. But because you're a nonprofit, the public is giving you free property tax and free rent. So that's why there's a 75% requirement. If you say there's not enough in El Cajon, we'll get from other places. You're saying the people of El Cajon will fund Santee, La Mesa, Lemon Grove, Del Cerro here, but if you have the requirement that they must stay in El Cajon, I'd have to leave that to the city manager and city attorney to include in the lease somehow, because otherwise it's just a wink, wink, yeah, that's what our plan is. Mm-hmm. So, okay, go ahead.
So that's because you are coming with an assumption that El Cajon has no interest. You are telling me, what about if El Cajon, they are not interested in the incubator? They don't want to join the incubator. So the incubator is going to be empty, and then what are they going to do with the space? I'm telling you, my suggestion, if El Cajon people, they are not interested, and I doubt that, because we have already at least 10 people approaching us, because we made an announcement in our channel at 10 people already started their application, but we haven't done anything officially because we haven't finalized our agreement. But I guarantee you this is going to be a successful operation, but I don't want to, because you're going to tell me prove it, but I already have 10 people.
Are they from El Cajon?
They're from El Cajon. Okay. All of them from El Cajon.
Okay.
And I'm going to tell you one thing, 99%, we're going to focus on El Cajon first, because for us, we care about our city and we want to empower our city, and this is an agreement between the city and the Chaldean Community Council, and our goal is to focus on our Chaldean, or all the communities of El Cajon, not only Chaldean, but everyone that can be a part of this incubator. So we're not going to focus on one community. We're going to open the door to all talented people, and we're going to share. And I would like you to join if you want to be a part of the advisory board. Any one of you can join the advisory board and help us to pick the right candidate. And there are many opportunities through the incubator. I know we met with the president of Evo Nexus. He came and visited us. They're going to give us full support to help us with this project. We just joined the International Conference of Incubators worldwide. It was in San Antonio last week. 120 countries, 5,000 incubators joined this conference. It's a huge business development project that's happening in many cities. El Cajon deserves to have this incubator. The Chaldean community owns 3,500 businesses in San Diego. We have the know-how of small business development, and we're going to make sure this incubator is going to blow.
I never in my comments have I doubted your qualifications.
Yeah. But I'm just answering your question. So
never have I doubted.
So I have no doubt that the incubator will succeed.
Never have I doubted your ability, your characteristics, your altruism, your effectiveness. My job is to mitigate the risk to the public.
I agree, 100%. That's the reason I'm answering you back. If nobody from El Cajon joined the incubator, we're going to talk about it. what we should do next. I'm going to be in touch with the city manager and talk about solution. How can we incentivize people? Maybe we give them a grant to start. Maybe we help them with some funding to start. Maybe we're going to have other ways that we can give incentive to people. But I can tell you, we already have 10 members ready to join.
That's wonderful. Thank you, Mr. Deputy Mayor.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Does anyone else have any comments? Okay, Michelle, go ahead.
Mr. Mitchell, the current lease right now, what is the length of term?
It's a 5-year agreement.
So it's a 5-year agreement, and the question right now is, do we add a 6-month notice? So if something at 5 years or 4.5 years and it doesn't work, we're saying we'll give you not a 30-day notice to vacate, but a 6-month notice to vacate, correct?
We would, correct. So as we were negotiating the deal points, and which is what we talked about in closed session several times, we took those deal points and then put together a full agreement. That full agreement addressed things that we never contemplated, like stormwater regulations and things like that. Right. So the full agreement's there together. I provided a draft agreement. And as I was reviewing it again, I recognized that I gave the city no protection for the ability to terminate the agreement. And a lot of lease agreements that we have that ability to terminate the agreement. So that's why that was included. It provides 6 months written notice from either side, because there could be an opportunity for the Chaldean Community Council that they want to vacate too. So it gives them the opportunity. So that's the intention of the termination.
Okay, and do we have any provision for once the 5-year term is up, they can negotiate an additional 5-year term?
No, there's not an ability to do that. Now, they can do that outside the agreement, of course.
Right.
Our concern was, under state law, under Surplus Lands Act, if you go beyond 15-year lease agreement, then you get into some issues. And so we wanted to keep it well within that 15-year period. So 5 years made sense to us. We don't know what the long-term needs are for the city in terms of housing, police, fire stations, other opportunities for development. So we would recommend just 5 years under this current agreement, but again, giving the city some flexibility in the event the building was needed for another purpose.
Okay. My question to you is, so you're not saying, so we're giving you a 5-year lease, and that's great. Yes. You just don't want to have the ability for us to be a bad landlord, so to speak, and give you a 6-month
because
eviction
usually
notice.
The lease is a lease. Like when you sign a lease with any lease, usually there is a term of the lease.
Right.
And there is no way that the lease can be cut. When you sign a lease with a landlord, they give you a term. Sometimes they give you an option. After the lease is over, you have the right to, another 2 years, 3 years. Our lease is being identified 5-year lease, and no addition, no options. So we agree with that. We are happy with that, and we are settled with that, and that's the city council has approved that. This addition, the last-minute addition, 6 months that you can terminate the lease, that's going to be a damage for us because we cannot, how can we manage and how can we plan? And even now, the county gave us $500,000 to start this project. What are we going to do if after 6 months and the city said, "Oh, we're sorry, we cannot. That's it. You shall have to leave or you have to stop."
So do you honestly think that we're going to just let you go in there, like say right now, and only stay there for 6 months?
Well, the lease say that.
No, but we're having confidence in you, and you need to have confidence in us. We're not going to turn around and say, okay, well, 6 months is up and now you got to go. When you rent an apartment or a house, they give you, okay, you go say year to year. They allow in that lease agreement a 30-day notice. We're just making it a 6-month notice.
So there's a 30-day notice in there already. This is in addition to the 30-day notice.
Okay.
So,
Councilmember, can I just clarify?
yeah,
something
Cajon,
really
you can speak.
Because the way that was explained was that, the way that I understood him to explain it was that it's 5 years, and at 4 years, 6 months, they could deny the lease. But what it allows either party to do is to say, next week, we've already signed the lease. Next month, you know what? We've changed our minds. We want to do something else with this building. We're giving you your 6-month notice, and you have to depart on month 7. That is why it is a 5-year lease, but I think most leases would honor the term of the lease, and if there's no cause to terminate early, then you don't terminate early. But this contract clause that they're proposing it's not for any sort of violation. It's for any reason at all. Either party can terminate their lease. And I don't imagine you would want us to do that either, because we're trying to help small businesses. So we're just asking to keep the 5-year lease, act in good faith. We have no intention of doing otherwise. We have no reason to not try to do our best with the incubator, and 5 years would, I think, be a fair term.
And to play devil's advocate here, you're asking us to trust you not to give us a 6-month notice. We're asking you to trust us not to give you a 6-month notice in, say, 6 months or whatever.
You're absolutely right, except that we are only paying $1 a month. So the idea of, or $1 per year. So the idea that this would work two ways, it doesn't really, because of the fact that we don't have much to lose and you have much to gain, if that makes sense.
No, actually, we would have a lot to lose as well, because then that building goes vacant.
And then you could lease it out.
Then we'd have to figure out what to do with it.
Right.
All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michelle. Yes, Councilmember Goebel.
Let me ask you this situation. If you were paying $3,000 a month rent, $36,000 a year, for the incubator,
yeah,
would you be okay with a 5-year lease? Would you pay $36,000 a year for 5 full years?
Well, I think that depends if it's fair market value. If we were in a position to do that and that was the fair market value, we would have to do that. We would obviously try to find a different property that we could get at a lower rate, or get some sort of city funding from, or some sort of collaboration from a governmental organization of sorts. But if we would be forced to and we had no other choice, we just may not be able to afford it and not do it. That would be, I guess, the alternative, if it's not within our budget to do it. And we are certainly trying to grow and use our funds. But up until months ago, I mean, we were really limited on funds. This $500,000 has really changed things for us, and it's going to allow us to help much more people. So I guess it depends on whether or not we had the funds, if we could pay for it.
It's a different discussion when you get $1 a year versus paying $36,000 a year. You have a different position on the term of the lease.
So I would like just to give you a little bit of background information. This building was owned by the San Isidro Health.
Yes.
San Isidro Health gave us this building for 2021. Until now, we didn't pay 1 penny on rent, because we were doing social services and they respect what we are doing. The city, San Isidro Health approached us. They said, think about buying the building, because we cannot keep having you free rent for, more than that. The CEO of the company approached us and he said, I would like to have a plan that you can take over the building. Either you buy it or find a way to find somebody to buy it for you. So we started thinking about that. We spoke to the city of El Cajon, to the county, to our supervisor, even to our federal, like congressmen. And they gave us idea. The city came with this idea. They said, we have money to buy the building for you. We're going to buy the building, give it to you. You're going to be 100% owner of the building.
We can't do that legally.
Okay. That's the way we started. The first discussion was, the city is going to give us the building, gift it to us.
It didn't come from me.
It doesn't come from you. But that's what happened.
Because
that's what happened. I'm just telling you the history.
We cannot give you a gift of public funds in the form of a free building.
Councilman Steve Goebel, this is what happened. Okay? The city said, we're going to give you the building. Then after back and forth discussion, the city manager came to us and said, sorry, we cannot do that because of the state law, because whatever. We only can lease the building to you. We're going to give you a lease, which is $1 lease, and should take care of you. That was the discussion. We said, okay, we're going to go with that option. So there is history. You cannot come now and tell me, well, I'm going to rent it to you for $36. This is not your building. I wouldn't give it to you. I wouldn't give it to the city if this was the negotiation. I would have found another way to buy it. It is my building. I gave it to you. Now you own it, and you want to kind of change all the term on me. It's not acceptable. There is history. There is background information. You have to know about it, all of you, so we can help and work together, because we're not going to stop here. This was our building. We were in this building for 3 years. We didn't pay a penny rent. Why? Because we are doing service to the community. San Isidro Health is a non-profit organization. They went out their way to help us because we were helping people.
Was your lease with them for $1 a year also?
No lease, no, zero.
They
pay for utility. They pay for the landscaping. They pay for everything. They didn't charge us a penny. You see that's too much?
I saw a different lease then.
I'm going to read an email to you that I received from your city manager 5 days ago. I realize that the lease does not have an early termination clause because we do not know the future of an upcoming sales tax measure, state of the economy, or what our demand for land will be. I'm adding this to the agreement. This is not a 30-day, you've been a bad tenant, we caught you smoking, we're going to kick you out. That's already in the lease. This is, if our sales tax measure fails and we need money, we're going to kick you out. We were blindsided. It was not part of the original negotiations, and we respectfully request that you do not add this to our lease.
I guess I'm going to make a motion, unless there's other discussion.
I think we should leave time for discussion amongst our council members before we lead with a motion. Is there any other questions to staff or the Chaldean board members from our council members? I have a quick question for legal, Morgan. Are we legally required to put some kind of early termination clause into a lease that is they're describing that's in the lease?
What Mr. Mitchell has been referring to is a typical situation where a city public entity needs to terminate to provide a higher governmental interest to a contractor to save money for non-appropriation, things like that. Say, for example, the city council finds that it's stuck. We can't pay the utilities share that would be obligated under this lease. You should have the right to terminate because you didn't appropriate money to pay for that. That's by law. So typically we have a termination clause for convenience in a contract. I've been looking through this agreement and have not seen an actual 30-day termination for any reason, not even default or things like that. So, to approve this agreement now, at least now, if that's not in there, we need to have that in there too. But I think the intent from Mr. Mitchell was, we don't know what the future holds. This council can't bind us to contracts with other with entities or bind future councils, and I've told you that frequently. That's why we typically have one-year contracts that are in place and then that end or are renewed by a new council. It could be the same 5 members, but it's a new council. So that's really what the protection is to have the ability to avoid having to pay money that you're not going to put in a budget somewhere down the line. And paying money is something that's a part of this program because you're paying utilities in the least.
But okay, so but there that's let me make sure I understand what you're saying. We have obligations within this building financially, but there's no law stating that we have to have an early 6-month termination in every agreement where we're leasing out city-owned property. There's no state law or anything like that.
No,
This is at
the understanding is that you cannot commit future councils with a contract. If you do, there are repercussions. So in other words, if you're going to, say we're issuing bonds for this wastewater enterprise, and we decide we can't pay that, then the remedy is the bondholders sue and either force every year a payment on the principal and interest on those bonds, even though we're not budgeting it, and have to sue us every year to do that. Another provision would be a service contract, and we go an annual service contract. We may have options to renew, but those are always subject to appropriation by the council for funds that the staff brings to you, finance and city manager bring to you, to appropriate money to pay for that service. It could be professional services for legal, it could be for engineering, it could be for design, architectural, and consultant services. And they put it in the budget, you approve the budget, and so it's enforceable at that point. But if you find the need to have to cut programs in the next budget, or 2 years down the road or 3 years down the road, you have to have the ability to do that and cut. And that's why, from a contractual rights basis, we want to have the ability to terminate contracts in order to serve the public better.
Do we have these kinds of, so I know we do $1 a year lease for the property at the chamber. Do we have any kind of early termination clause on that lease? Do we know?
No. I've looked at that lease years ago, and there was no early termination. It's a fixed term.
Okay.
Somebody approved back in the 70s or 60s or something.
Well, I want to make sure we're not conflating two issues, because what I'm hearing is expectations for the incubator and expectations for the social services aspect of it. And if either of those are not performing, there should be verbiage in the lease to say, if you're not performing based off of these expectations that are agreed upon by both parties, then the lease would terminate, or the contract would terminate. And I want to make sure we're not trying to solve that issue with the potential for financial ruin that could become in the future at some point in time. I tend to lean towards agreeing with the community council, the Chaldean Community Council. It doesn't give the organization confidence in building their ability to help the public and to establish I'm thinking 10 years down the road, a decades-long program of an incubator. It doesn't give them any confidence. In the event that does happen, if, let's say, we did execute a 6-month early termination clause, it's going to be next to nearly impossible for them to move their entire operation to another location. And I think one of the benefits of that location is that it's walkable. It's city center, and a lot of the people who are in need of these social services, they don't have cars, they can't drive, they're newcomers, and I think it sends a dual message where we're saying we're going to buy this building for this purpose, and we're going to commit, and we're going to move into this space to invest in our community on two different fronts, but we're not signaling any kind of confidence in that. The other side of this that I think we need to keep an open mind about, or be aware of, is what kind of message does this send to other organizations when we create a contract and we move along, and then the contract is signed, but El Cajon reserves a little side of things where we go back on our word, and I don't think that's operating in good faith. All that to be said, to address your issues, Steve, with regard to if there isn't any interest in the business incubator and it's vacant for, I don't know, an extended period of time, I think there needs to be some language in the business incubator contract to have expectations like that. I don't want to use a 6-month no-fault early termination clause to police that. I don't think that's the right way to handle it. So my suggestion would be to, if we don't have verbiage, clear cut expectations for the incubator and the social services with regard to how many businesses need to be participating at whatever capital raised or employees hired or expansion, whatever that looks like. I think there needs to be language in there, and I don't know that there is. It sounds like there is. There language in there like that?
There's not language about a metrics of whether the incubator program is successful or not.
Okay. So yeah, Steve, I'd like to hear your motion, and maybe we can jump off from that area.
So there's two ways to handle it. I kind of get a sense we're all in agreement that there's two separate things going on here: the social services, which is an established service in the community, and the incubator, which is something brand new. I have no interest in a 6-month out clause on the social services side. So that'll be part of it. Now, on the incubator side, there's two ways to do this. Number one, you can say you get 3 years guaranteed, but then after that, there can be a 6-month out clause by either party. What if after 3 years, for some reason, the CCC wants out of the incubator business? It says, we're booming over here in social services, and we want that space for social services. And so I think 3 years is a good thing to incubate the incubator. That's one solution, is to say, fix 3 years and then the 6-month out by either party. The other way to do it is to remove the 6-month from that one also, but put in performance metrics. And if you don't meet the performance metrics, then you're in breach, and you handle it that way. So there's two ways to do that.
I think if we're talking about a business incubator, which we've all you and I we've ran businesses, and there has to be key performance indicators for any kind of business. There has to be metrics. If you're not tracking metrics, you don't know if you're growing or if you're failing. I think it would be more appropriate to put in some kind of metric that can be discussed, and maybe it's based off of these other incubators that Dr. Barca and his team have been talking with, and ask them, what are some metrics for a startup incubator? What does success look like for a startup incubator? I think that would be a lot more appropriate of a situation than anything else.
I tend to agree.
Okay.
Which is going to surprise everybody. I know maybe you weren't clearing into the nuances there, but what I'm saying is the business incubator contract is separate than the lease contract. And the lease contract is for the property. Now, who gets to occupy that property? The incubator, as long as they meet these metrics. Now, how long is it going to take to come up with a contract for that? To agree on, we 7 businesses, 14 businesses, right. Whatever.
Council, this is an incubator, right? Mm-hmm. As Mr. Goebel said, we're incubating the incubator. I think having some predetermined set of metrics that Vince or I, who have no idea about what an incubator looks like, to develop or to look at the metrics of a successful incubator, I think it may set them up for failure. I think I would recommend, I like Mr. Goebel's first idea. You have a 3-year review period. Every year, or quarterly, they provide a written report per the agreement right now. So we'll have a sense of where it's going. Every year, there's an annual report to the city council. It'll give you a good sense of where it's going. And I think we really look at participation. Are people just participating? I think getting into how much capital is raised or how many jobs are created, I think that may be too much for the first bite. I think just participation levels is the first step, and I think we can build off from there. I do think this is not the ideal location for an incubator. I think more of an industrial park. But again, this is part of, we're incubating the incubator, and this is a first good step. I wouldn't want to hamster or sidle them with some requirements that would almost be impossible for them to meet. But I like the ability to say, and Mr. Goebel, you said it, Like, what if no one's interested? And we heard what Dr. Barca said, but there could be no one interested, and it'd be sitting on a building, leasing it to nobody. I like the idea of the 3-year review, and then if after 3 years there is an ability to a 6-month period to figure out what to do with it next, and that could be a termination of that portion of the agreement, or it could be something else. But it would give us some, at least some runway, to use your term that you guys like to use a lot, to figure out what to do with the 3,000 square feet. Does that help your dialogue a little bit?
Well, the reason why I suggested the 3-year guarantee is you have certainty.
Correct.
Everybody loves certainty.
Yes.
You get 3 years to start your business and get it going. I also have to balance the public's interest in giving this for $1 a year. And that's why I say, okay, I'm going to give it to these guys for 3 years to incubate the incubator. But public, I got your back over here to say, if it doesn't take off, we won't continue to do that. The question is 3 years a reasonable amount of certainty? I think it is. I personally have started 3 businesses. 2 of them went past 3 years, and 1 of them didn't go past 3 years. So I know at 3 years, if it's a go, no-go decision, that's how I came up with 3.
Yes, Cajon, please, come on up.
I completely understand the 3 years, and I sincerely appreciate that. But since we do know that Chaldean Community Council downstairs is operating, it's successful, it has a track record, perhaps we can incorporate something that if you do decide to terminate for whatever reason at the 3-year mark, that it could be given to the Chaldean Community Council to expand their services. Would the council member be open to doing something like that? Because we know, as you indicated, I believe yourself, that we are established, we are helping members of the community, we do provide services. So perhaps that's something that, if it's terminated at 3 years, 6 months, then the last 18 months can be taken over by Chaldean Community Council. At least they'd have the opportunity, I guess, like a right of first refusal, let's just say. Would that be something that you might consider?
I would leave that up to my colleagues. I see some benefit to that, the first right. I wouldn't want to just to be, yeah, we'll take it because it's $1 a year.
No.
But there would have to be some show us that you're busting at the seams.
Yeah.
And we would be smart to say, okay, that means you need more space.
Yeah, perhaps that's at least an option.
Deputy Mayor, I do worry that it de-incentivizes the effort to make sure the incubator works well. So I think there's an unintended consequence of that proposal. So I would be worried about that. So if they know that there's an ability to expand if the incubator fails, have we created an opportunity or an incentive for the incubator to fail? That'd be my only concern.
You're talking about 18 months. I mean, it's not as though the potential gain, if you're saying that we'd have an incentive to not do very well, all it would be gaining is that the Chaldean Community Council would get the upstairs for 18 months. That's not really much incentive to fail.
I would tend to agree with you, because let's say that we brought in an insurance agent who wanted 3,000 square feet. I don't know that we would give the insurance agent a 5-year lease, because then we're out of sync. And if we wanted to do something with the building, like trade it for another piece of property for a new something.
Right.
So I tend to be more sympathetic to your argument.
And I want to go back to we should maybe the suggestions I gave with regard to metrics for the incubator weren't appropriate, but maybe there should be a metric with regard to participation. And so I don't want to conflate 2 issues. We need to keep them separately. And I agree, even if they did vacate 18 months, no one's going to build out an area for 18 months and run their business out of there. It just doesn't seem like enough time. To your point, the floors are offset with regard to the leases.
And there are many ways to do that, Councilmember Ortiz or Deputy Mayor Ortiz. We could have them some sort of audit. Hey, how many applicants have you had? Are those numbers increasing? What kind of industry are people approaching you with? I mean, that's stuff that we could easily keep track of. But so I think some form of metrics is not a bad suggestion.
Right.
I just don't know that we could really compare us to the $10 billion
No,
incubator.
absolutely
Because that
not.
would be setting us up
No,
for failure.
What I was suggesting to clarify was, let's talk to this other incubator, someone who's been doing it for a long time, and ask them what does success look like for an incubator in the first year, in the first 5 years.
I think that's a great
and something
idea.
like that, and then that's a good jumping off point for expectations that the city would have on how the incubator is being ran.
Yeah, I think that's a great idea.
Do you think we should vote on two separate issues here? Number one, vote on the CCC lease. And is there a need to kick this back to staff,
I think there is a need to kick it back to
discuss,
staff.
and bring it back to council for a near, because we're on the clock on this. And we're eating up our 5 years in a sense.
I appreciate that.
So if we kick it back to staff to talk more about metrics and
Well, it is a separate
pros and
vote.
cons.
It's one resolution, but you can bifurcate
the
this.
vote.
And we can make it as the city attorney said, amend the resolution to only include the social service portion.
Value in that, to we're not quite settled on the
Well, I
incubator
think
side.
we are settled on the social services aspect of it. I don't think anybody wants to kick out social services within 6 months for no reason. I think that the material benefit is apparent.
Okay, so hold on. So what you want to do with the social services part is not put the 6-month termination lease.
That's correct.
Okay, but at the end of the day, this is a business transaction. We didn't want to become landowners. We didn't want to have, or some of us did not want to take this jump because we don't know what's happening in November. And now, and there were some instances on why we did not want to take this jump, or some of us had reservations to not take this jump. We have to have something that covers our butt, just like they need something to cover theirs. And I think that we're fighting over a 6-month thing that's probably not going to happen at all. But at least if something does happen, we have that option. Not only that, but after 5 years or 4 years, in 4 years, or maybe this November, we might have a whole new council. The three of us could be voted out. Do we really want to hold another council to something? Because that's what we have to take into consideration. We're holding all future councils from this day forward to something that we have no insurance in it. And I'm just saying, I don't know why we're fighting over this. I understand your position, but at the end of the day, this is a business transaction. And you're getting free rent.
And your constituents are also getting free social services.
Let's keep the discussion amongst us, and you can
Okay.
address a question
All right.
to the council, to the community council,
All
if
right.
you'd like.
I'm
so you
done.
can finish. You can finish.
No, I'm done.
Okay.
We can do a 5-year lease legally, correct? And so we're not obligating all future councils. We're obligating whatever council is here in 5 years or less. I'm going to make a motion that we approve. Oh, sorry, Gary.
Just a comment. I think it's very difficult for any business to plan and get their financing and grants unless they have that 5 years locked up.
Right.
Because if, like you gave an example of, you buy a $30,000 copy machine, or you buy all this equipment, and then all of a sudden in 6 months you're out. And the banks don't like that kind of thing. They like certainty. Business likes certainty. And I'm going to take a leap of faith and say that I think a 5-year lease is okay, but we have to have some sort of metrics that's easy. Like how many people came in there, just to check to make sure that they're doing what we think they're going to do. But I don't like showing someone to the door after 6 months. That's not really a typical business kind of lease.
The other side of this is this organization who is trying to secure other sources of funding for social services is going to be at the behest of other councils. And that gives them no certainty, or the entities giving them money to secure funding if they know that they could be kicked out in 6 months. So let's say the Chaldean Community Council is trying to secure funding through other means to keep their social services going. And on the application, they find out that there's a 6-month early termination clause that could be for no fault of their own, just because the city decided to change its mind, and there could be a future council that seriously jeopardizes their ability to secure funding in the future if they don't have a place to operate out of. So I'm going to make a motion to approve the lease agreement for the Chaldean Community Council Social Services, first floor, 4,100 square feet, with omitting the 6-month termination clause. Is there a second?
Second. I'll second.
Okay.
Motion carries by a 3-1 vote, with Councilmember Mitchell voting no and Mayor Wells disqualified.
Thank you. So that brings us to the business incubator program. And Steve, you had, I think that we need staff to go back and put in metrics with regard to participation, was the sense that I was getting from the council.
Well, we know we're going to get quarterly reports.
Okay.
Who's applied, who's been accepted. We know that's part of the reporting requirements at least. The question is, what's the minimum acceptable number to not be in breach?
That's something that I think needs to be in the lease agreement for this incubator program. Is that something realistically, staff, we can come up with? Minimum participation for an incubator program?
If the council can wait a moment, we included in the lease agreement or the RFP response that indicates what the business plan states. And maybe there's something there. I don't have it off the top of my head, so if you can be patient with me for a second. No, there's no indication of how many. I think in staff's mind, I mean, we had kind of in our head in terms of, I mean.
And if this is something that we have to go back and work through.
The notion that this is sort of free money, that it's just, nobody's money, that's not true, because there's a lot of other trade-offs for this, how this money could have been used. And so staff did take a lot of deliberate thought and process into, what if it helps 3 businesses and we're investing $2.5 million to help 3 businesses? From a ROI perspective, that's a horrible deal. So I think in our mind, we were thinking a minimum of 5 businesses should be being incubated at any given time. That was sort of our metric. We've never socialized that with the council or with the Chaldean Community Council. Perhaps if you were to push this to another meeting, it would give us a chance to look at it realistically and go, what's a realistic number target to hit? Again, I wouldn't want to set them up for failure. This is something that we want them to be successful, and if they hit 4, what happens, right? Are they booted to the street? Those are the things that we'll need to work out. But I think in my mind, helping 5 businesses at any given time seems to make sense. And if they're there for about a 1-year period, then over the course of 3 years, you're theoretically helping 15 businesses. Maybe that's too low. I don't know. But let staff. I think staff can take a look at it and see what we think is reasonable, with the caveat that this is not our area of expertise.
Yeah, I think that's fair. Why don't we table until staff has time to review? If we're all in agreement.
Yeah, I just wanted to say one thing. Dr. Barca has a string of successful businesses that he's started, and so he knows what he's doing. And our return on investment should be based upon that yearly rent, not the value of the building, because we get the building back eventually. It's our building. So what we're really talking about is what, $3,000 a month market rent?
Rent.
And, you know, that's a lot lower number than a couple $1 million that we paid for the building. Worst case scenario, Prop J doesn't pass in November, and then we're going to really be scrambling for money. So I don't know if it would be better to put in something regarding Prop J. I don't know if we can do that into the contract. Morgan? If it passes, you know, if it doesn't pass.
I really wouldn't recommend that as a metrics here. One of the metrics that should be considered. Number one, Prop J goes to what, 2026 or 7?
29.
20, yeah, beginning of 29.
Beginning of 29. So it's, you know, whether it passes at this election, you know, assuming there's something on the ballot and assuming it doesn't pass, the City Council will be working on different things and staff to try to address that issue before 2029. So I wouldn't want to put that in there. It almost appears to force a section of our community to try to endorse the measure itself. So.
Okay.
And Councilmember Kendrick, I included that as just an example of the thousands of unknowns that can occur.
Right.
It wasn't the concrete, this is why we have to do it. So I think including those thousands of unknowns would be hard to put into a lease agreement, hence the reason for the early termination.
Okay.
I don't know that there's a connection to Prop J really. If Prop J doesn't pass, you're only charging $1 a year, so it's not like you're losing income because you're only losing $1 a year. What you are potentially losing is what could you rent it for instead.
Correct.
That is $36,000 a year. That is not going to help us if we lose out in Prop J.
You know, if we were to lease the whole building out, if you got a 7% cap rate, you would be generating at least $200,000 a year based on our investment. So that does have an impact on keeping police officers on the street.
If you accept the 7% cap rate on that building.
Yeah.
Is it possible to approve a resolution with the caveat that the metrics right now, or you need to go back and
I
put
would
it
recommend, I don't want that authority, to be honest with you.
Okay.
I would recommend you only adopt a resolution that approves the lease for social services, direct staff to come back with the metric.
Right.
We'll present a different agreement after we coordinate with the community council.
Do you need a motion for that, Morgan, or is that just feedback?
You could provide the feedback. You know, if the council's agreeable to that, we have 3 weeks between meetings. I don't know if that's going to be too soon or not, but adopting the resolution, I would suggest that you just say amended to indicate that it's only approving the social services lease of the first floor and a portion of the second floor.
I'll make that motion.
Second. What?
Basically, like.
Please come on. Yeah. 1 minute.
Yeah, sure. So what Steve's suggestion is like after 3 years we evaluate the incubator and we see if it's working or not, and the city council can decide if the incubator is a good project to continue with or not, and that should take care of everything.
So you would be okay with a 3-year fix?
I will be okay if I'm not doing good over the next 3 years. And like you said, you are a businessman. You have 3 years. You give us the opportunity. If we don't show any success, the city council had the right to cancel our lease.
All right. Okay, so I'll make a motion to approve the small incubator services lease contract, removing the 6-month early
termination.
So you have a motion on the table right now. I think you should withdraw
let's
the motion.
withdraw that motion. Yeah, let's withdraw that motion.
Would withdraw, and the second would withdraw. I don't know who seconded it.
And Gary, I think you were the second for that.
Mr. Goebel.
I'll withdraw if it was me.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, so I will make a motion to approve the small business incubator lease as stated with the following modifications. Remove the 6-month as written and replace it with 3 years guaranteed with 6-month option by either party after 3 years. Does that make sense, Dick? At least, am I making sense? I'm not making an argument. I'm just saying, am I making sense?
Yes.
I think that's what.
To clarify your your motion, this is for the small business incubator lease that would remove the 6-month early termination clause and instead put a clause in that says a 3-year guarantee, and after that 3 years, there's an ability for either the incubator to remove themselves from operating it, or the city can then say expectations are not being met, and you are forcefully removed from operating it. You have 6 months to exit that area. Yeah. I could second that motion. Okay. So moved and second, please vote.
Motion carries by a 4-1 vote with Mayor Wells disqualified.
I want to say thank you to the council. I'm looking forward to you continuing to invest in our community, not only socially, service-wise, but with our businesses as well. I have full confidence that we're going to be begging you to stay because there's going to be so much good that's coming out of it. So I appreciate the act of good faith in coming here and sharing your opinion. I know we got heated a couple of times, but this is a good relationship, and we want to keep it that way. So thank you very much. We're going to take a 5-minute break. Oh,
excuse me, Deputy Mayor. I would like to restate that vote. It was actually a 4-0 vote with Mayor Wells disqualified.
Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you, Angela. I'm going to take a 5-minute break, and we'll be back. Thank you very much.
With the council meeting, we have one proclamation on today's agenda. I'd like to invite Chief Coe to accept the proclamation for International Firefighters Day. Thank you, Chief, and I apologize to you and all the other firefighters for making you wait for so long.
No problem. Thank you, Mayor Wells, and thank you, members of the council. Just on behalf of Heartland Fire and Rescue, El Cajon Fire Department, I just wanted to say from the bottom of my heart, thank you, and on behalf of the men and women of our department, thank you for this recognition. And also, I did want to share a video. We were inspired by our colleagues, our El Cajon Police Department, when they did the recruitment video. And we put together a recruitment video, our own, with the help of our marketing manager, Chris Berg. And before we play the video, I also wanted to say I do recognize we are just one team of a team of teams. And we would not be able to do what we're doing without the support of all the other team members as a city as a whole. And just wanted to say thank you for that. And with that, we have our video to show you and share.
Fire service and how fun of a job it is, and I've been in love with it ever since. When I was approached by an when I started volunteering, it's always one of those jobs when you're a young kid, you hear prestige of the fire service and how fun of a job it is, and I've been in love with it ever since. When I was approached by an engine company who was at the high school I was going to school at, it sounded like a great time. And from that moment on, I was hooked. Couldn't get enough.
I've wanted to be a firefighter since I was a little kid. I wanted to help people. I wanted to do a job that was exciting and rewarding. My first day on the floor was during 9/11. I knew I was in the right place of work where I wanted to be.
We represent 3 cities but under one department management and one patch. As the Deputy Chief of Operations, I get to help supervise over 100 firefighters in our suppression division. Those 100 firefighters respond to well over 32,000 calls for service every single year. This makes us one of the busiest fire departments in San Diego County.
I believe that Heartland Fire and Rescue is one of the most cutting-edge, forward-thinking departments. The fire department is rich with tradition, but we're not afraid to change. We're not afraid to embrace the future, to move forward, to learn new techniques, new technologies, and to be the first ones to adapt those new ideas into our training.
Our fire department is a Class 1 ISO rated fire department, so with that comes top-of-the-line training and top-of-the-line resources to do all of those things.
I copy. Water on the fire.
Our training ground is built specifically to the latest and greatest training techniques that we have.
When I speak to recruits, sometimes they're concerned, well, it's a smaller department, I'm not going to have the same opportunities I would as a big department. And that's just not the case. We have trucks here, we have rescues here, we have specialty apparatus, you can go out on strike teams. There's a lot of opportunities that you can have.
Our SWAT medic program is pretty unique. One of the great things with Heartland Fire and Rescue is how well we collaborate with other departments. We do joint trainings together, really gets everyone on the same page. We're able to teach them tactical medical stuff, and they're able to teach us some scene safety stuff.
I've been lucky enough to work at one of our stations that has one of the OES rigs. I've had the opportunity to go out on multiple different deployments, and it's cool because you get to go all around the state. And it's everything from fighting the wildland fires or dealing with flood victims.
The Fire Station Dog program here in Heartland Fire Rescue is unique to California. There's no other program like it. They've really become part of our culture and part of our crews. Day-to-day stress, she's here for us 24/7. You're getting the help, the mental health aspect of it without people knowing that maybe you need some help that day.
Everybody here at Heartland is very close. We have a great camaraderie that only strengthens us when we're working together. I'm confident that they will have my back on anything.
Even though we're 3 cities, we're one department. We all work together very well.
I had always kind of craved that camaraderie and just having like a chosen family on top of your own. I worked with many different fire departments locally, and I felt the most comfortable with Heartland Fire and Rescue.
I remember training here to become a paramedic, and we were up till 1, 2 in the morning doing practice simulations. The attitude of everyone can drop everything and help you out is definitely here, and I feel like that's something that's super special about Heartland Fire and Rescue is that we are very close. We are very much like a family. Everyone's willing to put in the work.
There's nothing I won't do for the guys that work for me and the guys that I work for. A whole intent here is to take care of each other, not only here on the job, but off the job as well.
One of the big things that I really enjoy about this department are how involved we are with the community. Part of the reason why people become a firefighter or choose this line of work is because we get to interact with the community. We get to go during good times and bad. Some of the calls that we go on, those are the worst days of their lives. And for the fun parts, we get to have these events where we get to help and benefit people in their time of need.
We're looking to expand our staff with good people that have qualities that are unteachable. We have the ability to teach you how to be a firefighter. We have the ability to teach you how to be a paramedic. Our goal is to get good quality people in here and help them learn and expand their skill set.
I come into work every day not knowing what today is going to hold for me. I get to help people from all different walks of life, help those people alongside my coworkers who are all share the same passion.
I love coming to work. I can say that there's not one single day that I walk past these apparatus on the app floor going to a call where I don't feel a sense of pride that I work here.
I'm just a service-oriented person. I like helping people. It really makes me feel good. I feel satisfied when I go home from work every day and knowing that I made a difference.
At the end of the day, it's all about the people. It's about the people that we work with, highly trained, highly competent, excellent attitudes, super professional, and it's about the people we serve. That's why we're all here. We get to do a lot of exciting, rewarding stuff, and I would just encourage anybody who's interested in getting into this field to apply for us. It's the best job in the world.
Well, that was great.
I got.
Thank you for your support, and just echoing what was said. This is the best job in the world, and thank you for letting us be part of the team.
Well, I speak for the whole council to say we're very proud of our fire department. Thank you. Okay, we've been all over the place, but let's start at the beginning. Agenda changes. Staff, do you have any agenda changes?
Mr. Mayor, you've made a couple agenda changes already. I would actually recommend that we remove agenda item number 19, which is a joint item with Deputy Mayor Ortiz and Councilmember Kendrick. He had to leave early, and there's some value of removing that, if that's okay with Mr. Ortiz.
Yeah, I'll approve that agenda change.
Okay. Michelle?
Are we going to go back to consent items?
Yeah.
Okay. Just checking.
Council members, do you have any agenda changes? Okay. That we made an agenda change, so I'll make a motion to approve that. Second. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Okay. We're now at consent items. Consent items are routine matters enacted by one motion according to the recommendation listed below. With the concurrence of the City Council, a council member or person in attendance may request discussion of a consent item at this time. Council members, do you wish to pull any of the consent items? Staff?
No, sir.
I'll make a motion then to approve the consent items. Please vote.
For the record, sir, there were no speaker cards for consent items.
Thank you.
And motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
And my understanding is that we do have another public commenter.
Yes, sir. We received one speaker card from Manny Aceves.
Hey, Manny.
How you doing?
Good to see you.
Good to see you too, Mayor. Well, my name is Manny Aceves, and first of all, thank you for kind of tweaking the schedule, I guess, for to allow me to speak. My name is Manny Aceves, and I am the community outreach leader of a nonprofit called Cast Hope. Cast Hope is a nonprofit that provides the gift of the outdoors to at-risk and underserved children through the sport of fishing. This is what we do. We basically get a child and a mentor, typically a parent or a family member. We partner them up with professional fishing guides, and we take them on these amazing fishing trips. Last year, Bill Wells and I talked, and I wanted to. Cast Hope wanted to come into El Cajon. And I said, where should we go? And he said immediately, East County Transitional Living Center. And for the past year, we've provided fishing trips for the families that are living there. Well, now, and I'm so bummed that some of the first responders left, Cast Hope has been wanting to expand. And so we felt like, we know that our first responders are so taxed, mandatory overtime, and we were saying, what if we as an organization provided that same opportunity for first responders, police, and fire to take their children out on these amazing fishing trips? And I've been trying to get a hold of El Cajon PD, and there's been people that are like on leave and here and there and the other thing. And I decided to come over here and speak to the council to see if here's the deal. This Sunday, April 28th, we have, as Cast Hope has rented out Barrett Reservoir. And if anyone knows of Barrett Reservoir, it's an amazing fishery. We have it all to ourselves, and I have spots open for first responders. So anyone out there in the council, if you're interested in kind of seeing what we do, you're more than welcome to come and join us. I will leave some information for you people to contact me, and if there's any people in fire or the police department that wants to share, like I said, we have like one boat that's available for first responders to go. Thank you so much for your time, and appreciate it. Thank you.
Manny took me and my grandsons surf fishing. Yeah, it was fun. It was a great time, and it's a really good program. He brings a lot of kids from all over the community that wouldn't get a chance to do it. It's fantastic. Okay. Let's see. We've done public comment. There are no written communications on today's agenda. We're now at public hearings, and we have 3 items to consider. Item 7 is for the proposed 2025 5-year program of projects for the Sandag Regional Transportation Improvement Program. And staff, will you please tell us about this?
Good afternoon, Mayor, members of council. Mario Sanchez, city engineer. Today, this item is for the adoption of the proposed 2025 Regional Transportation Improvement Program for the city of El Cajon. Next slide. Just a background slide. The San Diego County Transportation Improvement Program is a voter-approved 1/2 cent sales tax program that was adopted in 2008. The intent of the Sandag Transnet program is to relieve traffic congestions countywide. The city receives approximately $3.5 million annually to fund our transportation-related capital improvement projects. And our proposed program of projects, as shown on Table 1 of the staff report, are for our capital improvement program for the next 5 years, encompassing fiscal year 25 through 29. And on Table 1, this is our listing of a program of accounts that we use to fund our projects. They're comprised of street overlays, signal improvements, sidewalks, curb and gutter, street light installation projects, resurfacing, traffic calming, and our pavement management system. And with that, our recommendation is to open and the public hearing and receive testimony. We want to close the public hearing and adopt the next resolution in order for the adoption of the 2025 5-year program of projects for the Sandag RTIP. I'm open up for any questions.
Questions? All right, thank you, sir. Do we have any speaker cards?
No speaker card, sir.
All right, make a motion to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Somebody like to make a motion, or is there?
I'll make a motion that we approve the next resolution for the adoption of the proposed 2025 5-year program of projects for Sandag's RTIP.
Second.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Item 8 is the 2024-2028 5-year consolidated plan and the fiscal year 24-25 1-year action plan. I'll ask staff to introduce this item.
Hello, good afternoon, Mayor and Council members. My name is Yanira Pelayo, Management Assistant or Management Analyst with Community Development Housing Division. The purpose of today's public hearing is to seek public input on the draft 2024-2028 5-year consolidated plan and fiscal year 2024-2025 1-year action plan. It is also to seek City Council's acceptance on the projects and programs that the city will undertake during fiscal year 2024 and 2025. And lastly, to authorize staff to release the draft comp plan and action plan for a 30-day public review and comment period. The 5-year consolidated plan or comp plan is a HUD prescribed template and report that is required in order to receive CDBG and home entitlement funds. This report addresses housing and community development needs of El Cajon's low-income community in a period of 5 years. The con plan has different components that includes public participation, a community needs survey, housing and community development assessment, which includes city demographics and housing market data, and a strategic plan that showcases priorities, objectives, and strategies for those priorities. Based on the data available and public input during the comp plan process, the priorities were produced. So the priorities produced are conserve and improve existing affordable housing, assist in development of new affordable housing, provide homeownership assistance, support the continuum of care of homelessness, provide for community facilities and infrastructure, provide community and supportive services, and the planning and administration of all programs. These priorities are consistent with the previously approved comp plan in 2019. The annual action plan is also required for each year of the 5-year comp plan. The action plan identifies projects and activities that will be undertaken during that year, and that is to address the goals and priorities listed previously. And the fiscal year 24-25 is considered the first year of this new comp plan. And then the draft of that 5-year plan and action plan was attachment 1 of the staff report. In the development of the action plan, a total of 6 service providers are being recommended for funding, and 1 project for capital improvement is also being recommended for funding under CDBG, and for home housing programs are recommended for funding. And I will provide more details on that. The estimated 24-25 CDBG allocation is $1,229,000, and for home it is $689,000. HUD has not provided the actual allocations for the upcoming year, but once those are provided, we will go ahead and update the actual allocation. So for now, we are using estimated funding that we also received current year. So for planning and administration, there is a 20% cap of the total allocation received. Staff is recommending $205,800 going towards CDBG and home program administration. And for HUD mandated fair housing services, staff recommends $40,000 to go towards CSA San Diego County. Under the public facilities, capital, and other category, we have no maximum of allocation, and staff is recommending $850,936 for the continuation of neighborhood streetlights. We did see there is additional funding available of $54,812 coming from loan repayments and unallocated funds in current year. So part of that would be going to the continuation of neighborhood streetlights. For public services, there is a 15% maximum cap, and I'm going to list the recommendations here. It would be $10,893 for a rotational shelter program, $10,000 for the senior care coordination program, $100,000 for emergency shelter, $25,000 Meals on Wheels, $15,000 home delivered meal program, and $26,183 for the outreach and homeless services. And this program would also have those prior year and unallocated CDBG funds as well. So the grand total, including all funding, which is CDBG allocation, program income, and prior year, is $1,283,812. For the home allocation, fiscal year 24-25, we're estimating $689,000. There is a 10% cap for home administration, and staff recommends $68,900. There is a 15% minimum requirement for Chodo Reserve allocation, and staff is recommending $103,350. And the rest of the allocation would be going towards the housing program pool of funds, and that is an amount of $516,750. And the housing program pool of funds, those are funds that are earmarked for an as-needed basis, and that includes the first-time home buyer and the single-family and mobile home rehab programs. For today's staff's recommendation is that the City Council open public hearing and accept public testimony for the draft comp plan and action plan. Also, to close the public hearing, accept staff recommendations for projects and programs using 2425 CDBG and home entitlement funds, which will then lead us to City Council authorizing staff to release the draft plan and post for a 30-day public review and comment period. And once we do that, staff will return to City Council for a final adoption of that plan, tentatively scheduled for May 28th. And before I conclude my presentation, I do want to thank all the city departments that did take part in providing feedback and input for the comp plan process. Housing staff's available to answer any questions or comments you may have. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Nice presentation, and I appreciate all the hard work that went into this. Let me see if anybody in the City Council has questions for you. Michelle?
Hi. On those 6 service providers that we provide funding for, are we getting regular reports on them as to how many people they're serving and, what their funding has been used for?
Yes, so we do receive a report of accomplishments every time they submit an invoice, and that could be either monthly or quarterly.
Okay. And on our emergency shelter, how many people are they serving a month?
A month, I would have to check, but I know on an annual basis, their accomplishment is 350 people, and over the years, they've always provided either that amount or a little bit more.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you.
More questions? All right. Well, thanks very much. I appreciate it. Do we have any speaker cards on this item?
We do, sir. We have one from Tim Ray.
Hi, Tim. Thanks for waiting patiently for so long.
Yeah, I just wanted to come and thank you guys for considering Meals on Wheels again for the CDBG program, and appreciate the fact that you guys over the years have supported us and actually been involved in our Champion Week and had an opportunity to be in the community and see the impact that Meals on Wheels has. Without the support of our volunteers, there would be no Meals on Wheels. They are the face of Meals on Wheels. They're the connection with our clients, many of our clients who have no family, friends, or neighbors. So they're that personal touch aside from the delivery of the meals. And I want to thank you again for your support over the years, and we look forward to partnering with you folks again. Thank you so much.
Bill?
Let us know when Champions Week is again. I had a blast going around.
It's okay. You guys are so busy. It's usually like the first or second week of every March.
Okay,
Yeah.
So I missed it.
It's all
I
good.
missed it. Okay.
It's all good.
Dang it. I had a blast. It was so much
Yeah,
fun, and
it
hanging out with the
is.
volunteers and meeting the residents. It was awesome.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We appreciate everything you guys do for us. Thank you.
Our allocation for you is $25,000 based on 126 people that's in the report. That's only $200 for the year for each of those 126 people. It's not enough, but what you do multiplies that.
Absolutely. And we know that you guys, and there's so many wonderful organizations aside from Meals on Wheels in East County, so we know how difficult it is with the limited funds that you guys to have to distribute to among all of them. So we're just happy we're a part of that group. Whatever you guys give us, we're thrilled. Thank you so much.
You know, I've said this before, but when I went out with you all, I really thought your organization was just about providing food, and I missed the mark, because most people said, like, set the food over there, let's talk.
Right.
And that's all they really wanted was the interaction.
Yeah,
I mean,
yeah.
I'm sure they ate the food later, but they were more interested in the interaction with your volunteers. So good work.
Absolutely.
Well done.
It's the social engagement, because many of them do not have anyone. And our volunteer will probably be the only person they see that day, or possibly that week is the only social engagement they have. So,
sad.
Yeah. But
well, keep up the good work. Thank you so much.
absolutely. Thank you, guys. Keep doing what you're doing. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Anybody else?
No other speaker cards, sir.
Make a motion to close the public hearing. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Well, it's always fun to fund good programs like this. This is one of the nice things about being on the city council. Any discussion, or somebody like to make a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve recommendations for projects and programs for CDBG and home grant funds outlined in the staff report, and authorize staff to release the 5-year consolidated plan and 1-year action plan.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Well, almost as good of a feel-good item is item 9, the adoption of new fees modifications and elimination of existing fees and amendment of schedule of miscellaneous fees. And staff, will you tell us about this, please?
Thank you. Just to make sure everybody's listening, I do not condone fun and good feeling, so I'm giving the report.
We knew that, Morgan. They didn't have to tell us.
Mayor and Council, this is our annual review of fees and charges that we can adopt by our single resolution, typically this time of year. And the purpose is to make sure that they're in place by July 1, the new fiscal year. Departments can make their estimates on budgets based on those numbers. We have to do it this far away from the fiscal year because development fees, we don't have impact fees, but development fees, costs of building fees, things like that, require a 60-day referendum period. So we would ultimately recommend adopting the resolution. It would not go into effect until July 1, though. The agenda report provides a good analysis of all the fees that are proposed to be changed. There are minor changes to increase certain fees for services that may not have been provided previously in the previous years. City Clerk is requesting deletion of some fees because she's a nice person, and the addition of fingerprinting fees, so she's not so nice. Community Development is proposing changes in building safety. Usually that has to do with the multipliers in the International Code of Council for the San Diego chapter that we use to create our building and planning fees, or building fees, I'm sorry. The Housing Division is proposing a fee for what is called a TEFRA hearing. We don't charge nonprofits or bond issuers the cost for conducting these mandatory public hearings. And there's been a determination about how much time and effort is taken by the Housing Division to prepare those and put them on the agenda and conduct the hearings. So that is a new fee that would be charged to bond issuers in the future. Planning also has development fees that need to be increased based on cost of living increases, although none of the fees are intended to, while they may come close, none of these fees exceed the anticipated cost to provide the services. Fire has a number of changes because they've taken over the fire marshal services, the inspection services, and review of plans and specifications that, from their perspective, the prior fees, and this is good news, the prior fee used to be by the contract, whatever the contractor charges, and that would be sent out to a company like S-Skill, for example, plus 20% for all the work that had to be done to process those plans. We've looked at that and determined that it's probably not the same charge it should be anymore because everything's become electronic over the years. We used to charge 20% because that took time from people to collect plans, paper plans, get them prepared, copied, get them transported and things like that. So now everything's done electronically. Our contractor can go online through a portal and review things and make their changes. So the estimate is, after reviewing it, the estimate has been reduced in half to 10% as opposed to 20%. Parks and Recreation has some minor increases. One is to provide a fee for the rental of the optional inflatable Poseidon, what is that? Poseidon bounce house? Is that what you got with a Triton? I think that's what Mr. Carson has, as well as the optional trackless train rental. So there's a train station coming close to you someday. Police has some fees that would be deleted for not necessary any longer. Public Works has requested the changes in fees in a few other areas there. There are minor increases, but again, all of these are calculated to come close but not exceed at least the cost, the reasonably determined cost and expected cost of providing the services. Again, the law requires a public hearing on these things, so I'd ask you to conduct the public hearing, and after closing the public hearing and taking testimony, to adopt the resolution to approve these fees. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to try to answer those.
Thank you, Council. Okay. For any questions? Well, all right. Were there any?
No speaker cards.
No speaker cards on this item? Okay.
Motion to close the public hearing?
Yes, please.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right. Unless somebody has discussion, I'm looking for a motion.
Yeah, I'll move to adopt the resolution as outlined in the staff report.
Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Now here comes Clay. All right. Item 11 is the fiscal year 2023 through 2024 mid-year report and 5-year business plan update. And Clay is here to tell us all about that.
Good afternoon, Honorable Mayor and distinguished members of the City Council. My name is Clay Shane. I'm the Director of Finance for the City of El Cajon. Very happy today to be here to present our fiscal year 24 mid-year report and 5-year business plan update. Today's presentation will include a presentation for the mid-year report itself, a brief discussion about the minor number of budget amendments for FY24. We'll spend some time discussing the 5-year business plan update, touch on the FY25 budget timeline, and then answer any questions you have. For the mid-year report, good place to kick us off is general fund revenues. For fiscal year 24, we have absolutely observed a softening of revenues in almost all categories. Most noteworthy is the softening of sales tax. Going back to this point last year, we were anticipating sales tax to soften. We were expecting a modest 0.6% growth in FY24. However, we are falling short of that expectation. In fact, we are projecting that we will be down 2.1%, or approximately $1 million less than we collected in FY23, which is 1.3 million below budget in FY24, or 2.8%. Property taxes is a little bit misleading here. We are projecting to come in under budget. That's more a reflection of the budget number than actual numbers. Property tax performance is still very high. Our projection was a little askew between FY22 and 23, coming out of some of the timing issues related to COVID, and that corrupted our 24 projection a little bit as well. Property tax for FY24 is up almost 7% from FY23, so still performing very strong in that category. Franchise fees, another category that's perhaps a little misleading. We had a recategorization of revenue in that category. We had rental incomes from Waste Management that had been associated with their franchise agreement in previous years. We've recategorized that in FY24 into the rent category. So that's a little misleading. That revenue is still there. It's just down in other categories. Bottom line, we're expecting general fund revenues to total approximately $95 million at fiscal year end. This is 96.5% of the $98.4 million budget. On the expenditure side, we are experiencing or anticipate savings in all categories by fiscal year end. The majority of the savings are being experienced in the material, supplies, and service category, although, as you can see, there is savings projected in all categories. At the end of the fiscal year, we expect bottom line total general fund expenditures to be $96.8 million, which is 96.6% of the $100.2 million general fund budget. This is the same information presented together, and to summarize, we started the fiscal year with $62.2 million in total fund balance in the general fund. The $94.9 million of revenues and $96.8 million of expenditures we just discussed will end fiscal year at approximately $60.3 million, which is conveniently right where we budgeted, but as you can see, a lot of that's the result of the $3.4 million underperformance of both revenues and expenditures at year end. As that impacts fund balance at fiscal year end, this is a demonstration of the categorization of fund balance that we started the fiscal year with, at the totaling $62.2 million, and how we anticipate those buckets to be filled at fiscal year end. That's assuming we categorize the reserves in the same way we typically do in conjunction with the adoption of the FY25 budget. For the wastewater fund, we started the year with $32.3 million in budgetary fund balance. We have or project to collect $34.6 million in total revenues. This is $2.8 million higher than budget. The expenditure side, we're anticipating $28.8 million in expenditures. This is approximately $13 million under budget. Most of this is associated with CIP, and I will touch on that when we get to the 5-year discussion. Altogether, this activity leaves us with a projected ending fiscal year budgetary fund balance of $38 million in the wastewater fund. Very minor number of budget adjustments recommended for the FY24 mid-year. A couple of personnel adjustments. These are reclassifications. Reclassifications are done when the job classification does not match the work actually being performed. In this case, the city clerk's office is requesting a reclassification of an administrative secretary from a customer service representative, and the city manager's office is requesting a reclassification of senior management analyst from management analyst. Additionally, staff recommends the authorization of a couple of capital expenditures, a trailer for Parks and Recreation to help transport the city attorney's trackless train, and a couple of pieces of equipment related to the fire department's breathing apparatus. They're SCBAs and a breathing air compressor for Station 6, I believe. At this point, I'd like to transition to the 5-year business plan. This is the typical caveat I usually share in conjunction with this work. It discusses the limitations of projections. Projections simply are taking the conditions in place today and rolling them forward into the future. Basically, you're at the start of a path. We're guessing where that path ends based on what we're currently doing. That highlighted sentence, projection should therefore be used as a planning tool and to identify structural flaws. This caveat this year is probably more important than most years. We see some pretty significant changes in this year's edition. We'll talk about the impacts and what they mean as we move along, but it's important to realize that this is a mechanism to throw a red flag and draw attention to a potential issue, and not necessarily a prediction that this is for sure what's going to happen and compel immediate reaction. Before we get into the 5-year work, a brief update on the economy. A mixed bag of indicators on the economy. Seems like there hasn't been anything consistent or stable since 2019 in the economy. Inflation as of March 24 was 3.5% over the last 12 months. That is in excess of the 2% that the Federal Reserve targets. That is, however, quite a bit better than it has been in the last couple of years. GDP in FY22 grew at 1.9%, and in FY23 it grew 2.5%. Both of these are very modest numbers. However, a silver lining may be strong growth at the second half of FY23, with 4.9% growth in Q3 and 3.5% in Q4. FY24 first quarter won't be released. Actually, it's due to be released about this time of year. On the unemployment front, national unemployment as of March 2024 is 3.8%. That is actually up from 3.5 a year ago, so we're slipping a little bit there. However, most economists consider full employment to be between 3 and 6%, so nationally that number is still pretty good. California, however, is a little bit concerning. In March of 2024, California unemployment is 5.3%, which is still in that 3 to 6% range, but it has grown from 4.5% a year ago. So that's something we probably need to be aware of and keep our eyes on, the potential for a California economy within the greater economy. Presented here is the table of the projected 10-year results in the general fund. Typically, I present this slide with zero expectation of everyone reading every number on it. It is in the report. I do want to draw attention to the far right-hand column. We are projecting shortfalls in funding starting this year and growing over the next 10 years. We'll get into a little more detail as to why as we move along. I do, however, want to draw special attention to those shortfalls in FY28, FY29, and FY30. That is Prop J sunsetting. Unfortunately, you don't see it in one big chunk. FY29 is the final year that we will have Prop J being collected. We will only collect 3/4 of a year, so 28 to 29 is a 1/4 drop, and then the following year is the full 3/4. Just for comparison to why this is such a big change, presented here is the same table on the left for the current year's 5-year plan alongside last year's 5 years numbers. I've highlighted that change in fund balance, the far right-hand column. Last year at this time, we were projecting excess revenues for the outlying years until we hit the drop-off from Prop J. However, events haven't unfolded since then, and we are currently projecting shortfalls in all 10 years of the projection window. Question that's begged, of course, is why. We have 3 primary drivers that are driving this change. The first that I'd like to discuss is on the revenue side, on the inflow side. We discussed in the mid-year portion of this presentation that sales tax has come in soft, as well as the property tax adjustment. And you can see in all years to the adjacent year, or the same numbers from last year, it's approximately a $2 million shortfall. When you graph that performance, you see pretty much the pattern you would expect to see in this graph. The 5-year numbers from last year are the orange numbers. The current years are the blue. This is a typical pattern that you'll see when you have something like sales tax. Sales tax doesn't fall up and then you make it up the next year. It basically resets the clock and you start growing again. So it's just like a year lost. So typically what you'll see is the same shape, just shifted over to accommodate well, effectively someone hitting the pause button. Here again, the shape of the line is interesting. FY28, 29, 30 is your Prop J fall off. Minor dip from 28 to 29 for the loss of the 1/4. And then 29 to 30 is when it really drops off. On the expenditure side, we see significant change here. There's 2 primary reasons. This projection, the projected expenditures in this work, I want to address 2 things that have been talked about by the City Council quite a bit recently. One thing that is included are the estimated numbers from the tentative agreement with the Police Officers Association. However, it does not include any of the costs associated with the new engine company that's being discussed. In FY25, that expenditure number next year has changed by $2.8 million. For reference, 1.8 of the 2.8 is from CalPERS, increasing the UAL contribution, and the remainder is from the impacts of the POA agreement. When you plot this information, these are what the two lines look like. The orange line, again, is last year's numbers. The blue line is this year's number. Expenditures, unlike revenue, do take on a different shape because there is a compounding effect of a raise on top of a raise on top of a raise, that kind of thing, as well as the escalation of how CalPERS rolls in their amortization of the UAL. Bring this back to where we started with the change in fund balance. Obviously, these projected shortfalls are a problem that need attention. When you graph the impacts to fund balance, this is what it looks like. The orange line is last year's 5-year and our general fund reserve balances for the next 10 years. The blue line is with these projected shortfalls rolled in, with no mitigation or changes in the environment. General fund reserves are projected to go to zero in FY31. So before we start discussing how do you address a condition like this, I think it's important to revisit how we got to where we are, and that may influence some of the decisions we make going forward and how we mitigate some of these problems. Graphed here is the 10-year history of the general fund. The blue line is total general fund revenue, and the gold line or orange line, go with orange line, is total general fund expenditures. Over that 10-year period, they both, as you can see, kind of follow a very similar shape. In those years where the orange line is below the blue line are where the surpluses were generated, which is how we grew fund balance. For comparison's sake, throughout the next series of graphs, I've tried to keep all the lines the same color. So total general fund revenues are still blue and will be blue. Total expenditures are orange. The new line here is general fund spending on public safety. I wanted to share this because this demonstrates the council's commitment to investing in public safety for this community. As revenues have gone up, so too has our expenditure on public safety. However, there are implications of that strategy and prioritization. The blue line is still shown. It's still general fund revenues just for reference, and the gray line is still public safety spending in the general fund. But the green line is non-public spending in the general fund. And as you can see, over the last 10 years, that expenditure has been fairly flat, virtually zero growth over 10 years. During that 10 years, CPI has had an impact. Inflation does run its course. In 2014, $1 was $1 in 2014. In 2023, however, that dollar was $1.32. So by holding it flat, we've effectively cut non-public safety spending by approximately 25% over the last 10 years. So how that impacts us is when you look at the contribution of the general fund by its two component units, public safety and non-public safety. We started started the series FY 2014 with public safety comprising approximately 58% of the general fund and non-public safety approximately 42% of the general fund. And we ended FY 23 with public safety at 72% and non-public safety at 28%. It's unavoidable to also jump to this question. This is the blue line is still general fund total expenditure or total revenues. The red line is total general fund personnel expense, not just public safety, but total personnel expense. And the blue line is non-personnel expense in the general fund. And you can kind of see the implication there. It's a pretty easy conclusion to draw. Where that leaves us, however, this is as of the FY24 budget, does not include any changes for FY25, most notably the POA tentative agreement numbers or the proposed new engine company. So at the end of the budget for FY24, public safety personnel accounted for approximately 60% of total general fund spending, with you can kind of see what's left over for everyone else, non-personnel and non-public safety. Fortunately, or by coincidence, where the general fund budget is, it's approximately $100 million right now. So if you want to think about this in dollar terms, it's not too tough. It's 60 million of the 100 million pays for our firefighters and police officers. And I bring this to your attention, and it kind of dovetails a little bit to the comments the city manager had a little earlier. We get to a point where we have to reduce spending, whether it be for Prop J sunsetting or to address shortfalls. There really isn't a whole lot left to cut other than police and fire, and that's something we need to be very aware of. So I leave you with these concluding thoughts that we are looking at a time of change in going forward with this. These are problems that aren't magically going to go away. They do need to be addressed. However, this is a very slow-moving iceberg. This is a time to have a steady hand, not overreact. Everyone wants to maintain our priorities and not give up on them. However, in order to do so over the long term, we do need to find long-term solutions and not Band-Aids to make this work. And I'll change gears on you. Getting back to wastewater now and how their projections work. In all the years projected for the wastewater fund, we are projecting excess revenues, that is, revenues in excess of expenditures. This, as I alluded to earlier in the mid-year discussion, still tied to CIP. It's very typical for CIP projects to collect money in advance of doing the work, and I think you see this. Additionally, I did get a sneak peek at what was requested for the FY25 budget. We do have a couple of requests for fairly high dollars wastewater projects in there, but probably most importantly that will drive changes in these numbers over the next couple of years is wastewater is working to develop a new master plan, wastewater master plan, and that will be the foundation for developing a longer-term CIP plan. So hopefully as that work comes to conclusion, you will see these numbers change and some of those excess monies be committed to that purpose. So looking forward to the FY25 budget, as soon as we have the document prepared, we will have it in your hands for review. However, no later than June 11th, at a minimum, we will introduce some summary information and begin discussions with the City Council. And then return June 25th for adoption of the FY25 budget. So today's recommended action, staff asks that the City Council receives and accepts the 2 reports, as well as authorize the proposed personnel changes and capital expenditures detailed here. And that concludes my presentation. I'm happy to answer any questions you have.
Thank you. Thank you, Clay. Nice report. Let me see if there's any questions for Clay. Yeah.
Hi, Clay. Thank you very much. Pretty detailed, as always. We have a new dealership coming in, the Hyundai. They're a new dealership, correct? Or is it a new location?
Yeah, just a relocation.
Okay. I was hoping we'd get...
But we do have, remember, the CarMax is coming in too, but we also lost Walmart, so they kind of offset each other.
Okay. Never mind. Thank you.
Questions? Phil?
Very high-level question. Clay, thank you, and all the other department heads. We appreciate your work on this. Based off of the projections of general fund revenue and expenditures, am I to understand that even if the extension for Prop J passes, we're still not out of the weeds with regard to dipping into our reserves to cover?
There are a number of issues that need to be addressed. So if action is not taken before then, we will need to use reserves to maintain our service levels.
Thank you.
Yep, no. So based upon projections, assuming, let's assume that Prop J gets extended, you probably don't have the number right now, but would you be able to give us an idea of how much money we either had to cut or bring in excessive revenues to maintain the status quo?
Well, Those, yeah, actually, it's. Without any changes to expenditure, any additional money would be what that deficit is in the orange column. So, for example, next year, on top of what Prop J is expected, we'd need to generate an additional $3.6 million. So then when you get out, for example, into the outlying years, like FY31, for example, Prop J at that point would be $15.5 million maybe, so you need to generate another $5.3 million.
So I see it going up some 80% between 25 and 26, and then it drops in 27. What's that attributed to? And the shortfall?
I would anticipate that probably is tied to one of two things. I would say that is either the end of one of our MOUs where we're going from a known number to an assumed number, or that is a change in CalPERS amortization of their UAL.
So what I'd like to get, just from my own mind, it doesn't have to be right now, is we have a base number that, like, next year we have to come up with another $3.6 million to maintain status quo. Is there going to be a rhyme or reason about how much percentage each year we're going to have to increase to stay solvent?
It's always a combination of several different things. I think there are many departments in the city that are actively exploring additional sources of revenue. You could always out revenue this problem. You know, if we find a golden egg laying goose, you know, then we don't cut anything. However, more likely than not, it will have to be some sort of combination of things.
It seems to me it's kind of a big part of our job is to working with staff to try to think about ways we can bring more revenue into the city. Obviously, cutting is always a possibility, but you've said yourself that there's not much to cut. So, all right, well, Graham, you'll work with us on that, right? I think I still don't have a real good sense of year over year how bad it's going to become.
Well, as Mr. Shane mentioned, the reason we do the 5-year plan, it gives us a pilot point in the future, so we kind of know where we need to go. Now we know that as we dive into the details, as we prepare next year's budget, our goal as a city as a staff to the city council is to present a budget that's balanced, right? And there may be some hard decisions and as part of that. And then so year after year, we can look at that and then we can reassess where the numbers go if the economy bounces back faster. I mean, 1% growth in sales tax does a huge difference in those numbers there. So these are long-term projections. And as Mr. Shane said, the steady hand is what's important, but it gives us some sense of now's not the time to throw parties. Now's the time to be frugal.
Okay. Well, that helps a lot. More questions before I let Clay go? Thank you, Clay. I appreciate it. Come back with better news next time, please. Any speaker cards on this item?
No speaker cards, sir.
All right. Let me see.
I can make a motion.
Just 1 second here. Yeah, go ahead and make a motion.
And I've got a couple of comments before we vote.
Oh, go ahead, Steve.
The Advanced Water Purification Program will not need capital from the city of El Cajon, so that's good. They're going to go to market to borrow about $300 million for the bridging of cash, so no cash needed from the AWP. Today, the MTS Budget Committee received a sales tax from Sandag, and their consultant, I think they're planning on a 2.9% increase in the sales tax. I hope that's the case. So they're a little optimistic this year, just as a data point. Now, the bigger picture is we have to increase revenue somehow. I am concerned about some of well, let me put it this way. It's important that we get sales tax generating businesses in the community. And every time that we have a service organization go in, they provide great service to the community, but we don't get sales tax from services. So if there is I'll just leave it at that. It's important that we zone for sales tax generating businesses, and not zone for it, but encourage through economic development efforts. Because we certainly have a lot of non-sales tax generating businesses which provide a non-monetary value, but this shows we're going to need those monetary values as well.
Agreed. Any other comments? Somebody like to make a motion?
Yeah, I'll make the motion to receive and accept the mid-year report and 5-year business plan update, authorize the proposed personnel changes, and authorize the proposed capital expenditures detailed in the report.
All right, please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right. Item 12, the annual comprehensive financial report and other written communication from the city's independent auditor. And I'd like to ask staff to tell us about this item, please.
Good afternoon again. Still happy this time for I'm trying to be funny and throwing myself off, and it's not working. I guess it's not my thing. Presenting the annual comprehensive financial report for fiscal year ended June 30th, 2023. Today's presentation will include an introduction of the ACFR and its parts. And concluding our presentation, I will ask that the City Council receives and accept the ACFR. The ACFR is available electronically on the city's website, elcajon.gov. The ACFR is prepared in conformity with generally accepted accounting principles and adheres to the pronouncement of the Governmental Accounting Standards Board. The primary focus of this document is the comparability between state and local governments, and it is comprised of 3 sections: the introductory section, financial section, and the statistical section. The introductory section includes the letter of transmittal from the city manager and the director of finance, and a brief description of the organization. The financial section is the meat and potatoes section of the report. It includes the independent auditor's report. This fiscal year, we again received a clean audit opinion. The management's discussion and analysis is a required discussion of significant changes and variances from year to year. It also includes basic financial statements, the notes to the basic financial statements, as well as required supplemental information. The statistical information contains 10-year histories of financial trends, revenue capacity, debt capacity, demographic and economic information, as well as operational information. That concludes my presentation, and staff recommends that the City Council receives and accepts the annual comprehensive financial report and other written communications from our outside auditors.
Let me see if there's questions for you. No? Are there speaker cards on this item?
No speaker card, sir.
All right. Then I leave it to the council. Somebody like to make a motion?
I think we just need to accept and receive the report. Is that correct? Yeah.
Yes.
Move. That's my motion.
All right. All right. Please vote. That was easy this time.
Motion
Thanks.
carries by unanimous vote of those present.
All right. Item 14 is my activities report. It's as reported. Councilmember Goebel.
As reported.
Councilmember Mitchell.
As reported.
And Councilmember Ortiz.
As reported.
Okay. There are no general information items and no first or second readings on today's agenda. And that brings us to closed session. The city attorney will recite the title and lead us into the closed session.
Thank you, Mayor Wells. The City Council is going to recess into closed session on 4 items. First one is a closed session for conference with legal counsel on anticipated litigation, significant exposure litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 of subdivision D of Government Code section 54956.9, one potential case. Second item, number 21, is conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8. Property is at 425 West Main Street. The negotiating party is Hala Inc., and the city negotiators are the city manager, assistant city manager, and city attorney. Under negotiation are the price and terms of payment for acquisition of property. Item 22 is a closed session for a conference with real property negotiators pursuant to Government Code section 54956.8. The property is at 1050 Vernon Way, El Cajon. The negotiating party in this case would be as a tenant would be USA Waste of California, Inc., and the city's negotiators are the city manager, assistant city manager, city attorney. Under negotiation are price and terms of payment for lease of property. And finally, item number 23 is a closed session for public employee performance evaluation. The office is that of the city manager.
All right, thanks. I'll make a motion to adjourn the closed session. Please vote.
Motion carries by unanimous vote of those present.
Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to closed session, then we'll come back in a few minutes to conclude the meeting. Ladies and gentlemen, we are back from closed session. I will ask our city attorney to report on what happened.
There we go.
There you go.
Closed session for conference of real property negotiators. Direction was given to the city's negotiators. Am I missing one? Oh, 20, item 20. I'm looking at. Did we have, am I looking at the wrong one? I'm sorry, I didn't have the revised agenda. Okay. Item 22, conference with real property negotiators. Direction was given to the negotiating team. In item 3, the public employee performance evaluation for the city manager was performed and completed.
Thank you. This brings us to adjournment, the adjourned regular joint meeting of the El Cajon City Council, El Cajon Housing Authority, successor agency to the El Cajon Redevelopment Agency, held this 23rd day of April 2024, is adjourned till Tuesday, May 14th, 2024 at 3:00 p.m.